Good evening. My name is Helen Anthony. I'm the chair of the Committee on Finance. I'm calling to order a regular meeting Wednesday, May 14th at 5:36 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman James Taylor,
Here.
Councilor Stu Enderwan,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Abdul Grace.
What do you say? Oh, she's here. I'm sorry, we're speaking for each other.
Yeah.
We speak, and now we're just confused, yeah.
Councilor Miguel Sanchez.
I'm present.
Five present, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Pension Committee, who is here from the city solicitor's office. So no one of the works, we have a substitute tonight. Nice to see you. Thank you to see you for coming. Okay, with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to waive the reading of agenda items 1 through 5. Motion made by Councilor Vanderwall, seconded by Councilor Graves, all in favor? Aye. All opposed. Okay, with that, I think we are going to do a little out of order this evening. And I'm so sorry. Yes.
So, Madam Chair, would you prefer to have everybody sworn in at the same time? Because I don't know who you might call upon, and similar to last evening, there was quite a few that were here. And it's a large group, but I think it will make sense.
I think it would do. Thank you so much. Okay, if we could have everyone stand who's going to testify this evening, even if you think you're not. Stand and swear you at.
Raise your right hand. You swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please state your names for the records, Larry and Scott.
Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer of the City of Providence.
Sarah Bavaria, Finance Director. Crystal Lambert, Deputy Finance Director and Budget Officer.
Anthony Alves, Deputy Director of Public Finance. Deputy Director of Budget.
Cheryl Burgess, Deputy Director of Purchasing.
Alejandro Fidel, Director of Requisition. Your name is Luis Nicholas Chickatelli, Director of Real Estate. Jonathan Bastian, Director of Education, Safety and Health. Administration.
Along with the Chance, Director of Public Rules.
Maria Lomax, manager of town acquisition, city of Providence and health.
After there are one that we chief people officer in the conversation.
Always for Chief People Officer, City of Providence.
Silas of the World Bridge to improve that chief people culture.
Priscilla Villikers, Director of Sustainability.
David Gerald, for Chief Resilience Human Administration.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Chief. We appreciate that.
You're welcome, Madam Chair.
Okay, I think that if we are going to take office of sustainability first.
And once again, Madam Chair, Deputy Director Lindbergh and Budget Officer. With the proceedings and.
Yeah, no. Thank you very much for the introduction, Chief.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a change, utilities.
I'm sorry to throw you off. It's just I'm going to take, I recognize that. That maybe we have some of that. Just going to say.
No apologies necessary.
Well,
There are more people than that.
there may be, but for the time being, I could maybe slide down there. Let me adjourn.
We're not sure. Okay. All right. And we're gonna have the deputy, so sorry, I will go back to the regular.
That's not. I have a motion to turn your budget books to page 271. This is where the revenue and expenditure details are for the Department of Sustainability. I'm joined today by Director Priscilla Villikers and Mr. David Ruggiero, the city's Energy and Resiliency Administrator. Great, right? Okay, excellent.
Total proposed expenditures in the sustainability department in the fiscal year of 2026 are $826,012. This represents a $69,553 decrease from the fiscal 2025 budget of $895,545, or 7.76% reduction. This is a revenue generating department, but the revenues are recorded in the heat, light, and power portion of the budget. So when we get to the later slides, we will see the $1.5 million in energy credits reflected later in this presentation. However, all salaries associated with this department are budgeted in the sustainability department. Fiscal year 2025 salaries were $487,456. In fiscal 2026, the budget was adjusted for the following items: cost of living increases totaling $8,784. Step increases for $6,408. There was a position defunded, that was a sustainability policy associate position, and the salary for that position was $72,453. Additionally, there's been a request to increase the salary for the deputy director from an A16 step 5 to an A19 step 3 with an annual cost of $8,119. For a proposed total salaries in fiscal 26 of $438,314. When we look at the operational fixed and discretionary costs, we see that the first discretionary cost is fees not classifying. This is parking and professional development for the office. There is postage expense, which is a new line item in this budget, but it relates to a mailing that's required for the barrel ordinance. Dues and subscriptions have been budgeted at $6,215, and this is professional memberships for the sustainability staff. Printing also has a modest increase, and that is to print bearer-related materials for that mailing you mentioned earlier. Private contractors is considered a fixed cost, that's budgeted at $63,500. This is translation services, the cost for a URI Energy Fellow, as well as climate justice plan updates. Under the supplies category, there are grant expenditures listed under discretionary at $117,554. What's important to note is a lot of that grant expenditure line are external grant matches. So it is in the discretionary category, but should we lose that funding, the funding for the full grant would also disappear. It includes funding for youth commissioner stipends and stormwater program engagement as well. But again, the vast majority of it is a grant match, or grant matches. And the last discretionary line item are miscellaneous expenses, which encompass their office supplies as well as public meeting costs, which are space, food, and childcare. Would you like me to stop here or continue?
I think we'll continue because this is important, I think, for us to see this next board.
For sure, definitely. It's a major component of their operations. Moving into the heat, power, and light portion of the budget. This is a department you may want to consider renaming. As we continue in this, you'll see that we've moved more than heat, power, and light into here. It's encompassing almost all of our utility expenditures, and so it may be more appropriate to call this something other than those three things. This is where the revenue is generated in the sustainability department. In fiscal year 2026, we have budgeted $1.5 million for the sale of energy credits. While this does appear as an increase over last year, in fiscal year 2025, the energy credits were budgeted as a reduction in expenditure. So it's a little bit of a difference in presentation, not that this is a new revenue. Okay. The total expenditures in this budget are all lumped together. So the total of all of the utility costs is $7,557,537 at the time the proposed budget was presented. However, the breakdown for these line items are on slide 8. So you can see this $7.5 or $7.6 million is comprised of solar energy energy services, which have been offset by solar energy credit costs or program revenues. The natural gas supply has been budgeted at $436,029. Gas service, electric supply. Again, it's just kind of the breakdown of what makes up this $7.5 million. However, I do encourage everybody to turn to slide 9 because, as we know, we are living in a very tumultuous market, and our David Ruggiero is phenomenal at monitoring these things. And so, what he has discovered since we proposed the budget is that the market has indicated we may need to increase this proposed budget before adopting a final budget for fiscal year 2026. And I'm sure David can dig into more of his rationale behind these increases, but he has done a very good job of recommending an adjusted amount by category, as well as a description of why that adjustment he thinks would be in the best interest of the city. And I tend to agree.
Okay, this is a lot to talk about. I appreciate that. And we have our experts, director, and. David, what is your title?
Administrator, Energy and Resiliency Administrator.
That just doesn't seem right, but anyway, I'm just gonna.
We came up with different titles of Director of Energy Operations,
Oh, okay. Well, what does that make you then?
still Director of Sustainability. Yeah.
Director.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, so there's a lot of questions. I don't know if you would like to talk. Or- I have one. All right, so if we could just talk about the funding the sustainability policy associated. Where was that in your report chart?
So AP or SAR, that would have been directly under Deputy Director of Sustainability kind of prompt.
Okay, and I'm sorry, and can you tell me why it is, that's been defunded?
Yeah, so first, just starting off by acknowledging, as you all know, like the challenging budget year that we're facing. And we're looking holistically at the decisions that have to be made. That is what called for the administration to propose those department cuts, not only to sustainability, but also across other departments. So that is why you see that position really defunded. But I do want to go ahead and say that taking the time in terms of the team that we've had over the past year, we've accomplished a lot. And Sophie Bush-Barnum, who's the current policy associate, has been tremendous in her contributions to what we've accomplished over the year. So it's no indication on her performance. And she has been particularly instrumental in furthering the implementation of the climate justice plan through initiatives like the Resilience Hub, and really looking at increasing the community resilience through the lens of community meaningful collaboration, working with partners on the ground, also doing policy work on the comp plan, the Croport master plan, and really increasing our ability to expand our capacity through strategic partnerships outside of the office and outside of City Hall in terms of how we fulfill our cost saving strategies, right? To do more energy efficiency, to do waste and to stormwater. I mean, with that said, we are looking on building on our successes. Part of that has been looking at our interdepartmental approach and how we work with other departments that are here today, like public property, the mayor's team, in particular policy, reporting to the policy and resilience, and really looking at, we know what our statutory requirements are, we know what our priorities are. So planning for where the work does shift. As a result of defunding that position.
And is that person, who is that person currently employed?
Yes.
Sophie. Okay, and, okay, I'm just gonna say at the start, first of all, the narrative that you, included in the book was so incredibly thorough, and I'm just so impressed with the amount of work that you have done to, at least I was one of the people that supported the, sustainability department being its own department. And the fact that it's grown the way it has, and the incredible savings that you're, now the fact that you're administering, or you've now taken on the administration of the water, sewer, the billing, the whole 9 yards, it's just, I mean, what your department is doing on 5 people, 6 people, sorry, but proposed to be 5, is incredible. So, saying at the outset, I may have a little short patience today, it's been a long week already, but I am gonna say that I didn't know I feel that the mayor is not supporting sustainability and recommending this cut. And this department is doing unbelievable work. And I am not at all supportive of cutting this, defining this position. Because I think it's incredibly, you're taking on your ass to take on more responsibility, and then you're cut and your staff. And I don't know what that means. Our climate justice plan is being implemented. It is, throughout the country, it is the most innovative plan. We have so many standards and goals that we're meeting, that we need to meet. And I'm gonna say that, I'm sorry, I'm gonna start off this way. I'm just gonna start it that way by saying, I just think it's not right. So I'm gonna open it up for questions and comments. Yes, Councilor.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I also think you're stunning. I'm gonna end with that, but first I have a question.
Yes, please, ask questions.
I guess I have a few questions. One is for page 8, seeing that now transferred from public property, we have water and sewer going to this department. Is public property also transferring you into funding or FTE, or are they losing anything for transferring this substantial amount of work to your department?
So you can get into the.
Yes, so.
financial
And if not, why not?
Yeah, so certainly, I think what this comes down to is there's a energy management software that's being utilized, right? At this current point in time, all of those water and sewer bills are not incorporated into that energy management system. And as a result, those bills are not being evaluated and looked at in a very thorough manner. So right now, what we're trying to do is work within the financial constraints we have and figure out a best way to give capacity to, sustainability and manage what public property has. And honestly, we're getting through it. It's been a challenge. Public property, was originally responsible for all of this because sustainability was part of public property originally. When sustainability became its own department, the internal auditor asked me to prepare a fiscal note, and I had said at that time that this is a budget neutral move because at that time it was budget neutral. And her attestation was, yes, but it will grow, and she was correct. It has grown. We have added fiscal positions to this department. What we found is that while we've added fiscal positions, the fiscal actual bill pay responsibility always has remained in other departments. And so what we are trying to do right now is look at how all of these departments relate to sustainability, figure out a way so that we can get these bill paid without overwhelming this staff, but also ensuring that somebody who understands our utilities are actually looking at these bills before they're being paid. So we're not just rubber stamping things. And if I'm being candid, I don't know what that looks like at this point in time, but I can say that like, we're very committed to making that work. We have staff in our office in finance that we have offered to support them in administrative capacity. And so we will be spending the next few months trying to figure out what that looks like.
So I'll expand on that because it is part of our operation capacity. I think, we often get in front of you and talk about, of course, why we're nationally recognized, the climate justice plan and all the great things we are working to implement. But reality, beyond programs policy, we are a critical component of the operations of our city. And we have been, right, for some time, even prior to David, overseeing that Heat, Power and Light budget. However, with David's tremendous talent, we've been able to really refine how we're doing that, and really revamp the process. So when the responsibility was transferred over from public property and some aspects of finance over to sustainability, we took that opportunity to revamp it and to make it more efficient, right? To bring it to the 21st century and having the right software to expand our ability for how we make energy decisions and also identify cost savings. Like off the bat, we were able to avoid $37,000 a year in late payment fees. I think that's going to result in more strategic energy procurement. Over the past 2 years, David can speak himself to the millions of dollars he's been able to save the city, 1.2 alone in the past 2 calendar years. So again, like these investments are only going to help refine that. And as you saw in our budget book, yes, there are some clerical things that we need to resolve tied to taking on the management of the utilities and the payments in terms of like administrative support. We do have the very talented Julia Dearden, who serves as the fiscal and communications coordinator, really like 2 different skill sets that you don't find in one human. So it's amazing we have her. And she's been working very closely with David and also with Andrew, who's our energy manager, and really reconciling and streamlining, the payment process, how we budget, how we pay things. And I think what we talked about also, Crystal, is like, yes, things are shifting. This is in particular shifting. You might see a saving in public property and seeing that added on to sustainability. But the idea is that we're still going to remain with that interdepartmental approach where we are working with public property, especially as we're taking on water and sewer, right? We want to revamp that process. So we want to do that effectively, efficiently, bring it to the 21st century, and also working with the finance team, right, to really identify how we fill in that gap for administrative support.
And that's awesome.
And I know David, if there's anything.
Just to keep going real quick, like one, I am so supportive of you guys taking this on because I am just so impressed by the amount of, like, by what you've done. And David, administrator, whatever, when you director, magician, when you presented to the environment committee a few weeks ago, I was stunned by just what?
That was a few weeks ago.
A month ago, I don't know, time passes. Like, just by bringing it into the modern century, that like now we are saving almost $40,000 a year just by laughing. So my point of the comment was less like, I don't want you to do it because I 100% love David's running like so many things. But I just find it like, offensive that we are giving you more work while taking away your staff. So like David is gonna be doing all this work, bringing you guys and bringing the city into the 21st century. At the same time, we're gonna knock you down at the knees. And I just think that, I'm not directing that at you, I'm directing that broadly at the administration that we would do that to you at this time. And I'm like a little furious, so I'm sorry if I'm like a little more emotional than I normally am. And I guess a few other quick questions. One is, one thing I think we've heard consistently from other departments is praise for you about your help with getting grants for pilots and things. Like we had a DPW here last night, and Director Pointe talked about partnerships you had with them. We've heard from Parks before about the work you've done with them on electric equipment and ways that you've helped them. Can you talk about other departments that you've worked with and help either like leverage grant funding for them or other things like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We love working with Trish and her team in DPW, and that's how we've been able to really secure and implement the grants that we have for waste reduction. So we have nearly about $7 million in grants that we've been able to leverage, multi-year grants. So there's some composting in there. That's how we're looking into leveraging the funding we initially got, a few $1 million for trash and recycling. And that includes outreach and engagement. So yes, lots of work happening with DPW. Other departments, we work really closely with the recreation team. In particular, in terms of how we're making upgrades to different facilities across the city. Again, our lens is always looking at what are the communities that are most overburdened by inequities and really targeting the investments there first. But as you all know, like our facilities have been, underinvested for so long. So now where we come in is really bringing in the opportunities for, of course, complying with the carbon neutral buildings ordinance. And facing off fossil fuels by 2040, but also looking at like, what are the energy incentives that are out there? What are the deductions, right? So we can not only stretch our dollars, but so we can make the quality of being in that building for that neighborhood much better. So in particular, one that I'll highlight is at the Johnson Center. We've been able to launch there our first resilience hub. And the idea there is that we're meeting the community where they're at in Ponyville and being able to provide rapid level services and programs that they need, and they're part of bringing in that programming. And then we're also building up the resilience component, and that's where David comes in, right? Working with the rest of our talented staff and looking at, okay, how do we actually deploy the energy efficiency? We have strategic partnerships with like Rhode Island Energy on the outside. We have from the state treasury, we have capital improvement dollars to allocate, but then we want to go further. We want to get solar on there. We want to get battery storage. So there's an extreme weather event, right? That's a place that the community can go and be able to really for a few hours charge their phone or access water, access other services that they might need. So working with recreation, working in particular with the mayor's policy team, the chief of policy, looking at stormwater. And sewer management and really looking at our aging infrastructure and how do we better prepare for the extreme weather events that we're seeing and how do we mitigate the flooding events and build sustainable funding streams for that. So that's been an ongoing project for us. And then of course, we mentioned public property, working really closely with them when it comes to decarbonizing is just really essential that we're doing that work together. When it comes to, and part of decarbonizing is looking at energy efficiency. It's looking at making upgrades, and as we, of course, resume local control, hopefully in the near future of our schools, that's a huge opportunity, not only to ensure that the building itself is in the 21st century, that it has the energy efficiency that it needs, but it also is an opportunity to bring in more revenue and cost savings to the city. So that's another operational arm that we have, right? Really striving for those cost savings and efficiencies across departments, but also making sure that the public sees that as well in those facility upgrades. I could go on, but I think that highlights ones.
Okay, that's a good list, okay. I promise not to go all night, my friends. But can you also talk a little bit about, so there's funding set aside for the climate justice plan? But if, Sophie does leave, which like, I think it's very clear that I am, gonna die on that hill that she doesn't leave, but, would you be, so I guess I'm biased, but, in the question, but could you talk about like, how would you get that plan done in the absence of having the policy, I forget, associate? Like, I think that had been one of her tasks. And when I talked with like the REGC and when we heard their testimony at the public hearing, this was like their one ask, having her there to help, having that position and particularly she's doing such a great job there to help with this refresh of the climate justice plan. And so like since the plan does involve such a deep community engagement, like, how do we do that?
So I first want to say, I mean, our partnerships and the way we approach meaningful collaboration with community members is extremely important to us and is something that, you know, throughout the administration and the mayor we've elevated, because that is really, you know, in terms of course, centering equity in our climate justice plan, but it's really how we carry out that work that I think makes our plan nationally recognized and also a model, right, for the state to look at, because we're working hand in hand with these partners. So of course, when we hear from them, you know, they know that this is a challenging budget year. We've had similar conversations in the Sustainability Commission and in particular, the REGC, who co-developed the plan with us. So it's really, you know, continuing to work together to figure out how do we meet that goal. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, working with Chief Dormady and looking at where the work does shift, where we no longer have that capacity within the department, you know, whether it is external or whether it is within the policy team.
I guess more than another question, and we're just have a final comment. I mean, one, I just want to like compliment you guys on your amazing work. What you guys have accomplished is just stunning. And I think that I've tried to say it before, but I'll just say it on the record. And when you guys presented, whenever that was, several weeks ago, earlier this quarter, I guess, on the implementation of Bureau and the carbon neutral ordinance, but also all the funding you've been saving, like the money you've been saving through implementing your policies, but also through modernizing how we do things. Like, I'm gonna like really embarrass myself and say, like, I got choked up driving home. I was just so like cried in the car. But on the record, I'm doing a cried in the car. Is just like what you guys are able to accomplish with such a lean team is just stunning. And I wish all of the departments were like this. And we have so many talented cities to have. I think you guys are chief among them. And one, I want to say that it's just a stunning amount of work. And two, the work that you're doing is a model for the state. I know as the state is looking to implement their own, hopefully, building energy benchmarking ordinance, they're looking at Providence. And when I talk to state legislators, they're like, we're looking at what Providence is doing. They're the model, they're doing it right. It's easier because Providence went first, or is going first, and because they have such competent staff. And so like you guys are this like amazing model that's doing so well. And I can't wrap my head around why you would take away a position from like kneecap, like a department that is doing such amazing work, bringing in a ton of grant funding, bringing in funding for other departments, partnering so well with other folks, and just like doing a stunning amount of work. And then we're like, okay, your reward is more work and fewer people. And when the mayor was running, he looked me in the eyes and he said, I support the climate justice plan. And I think that was a lie. And because this is not how we support the climate justice plan. We do not fire the one staff person at the REJC, hopes we keep. So that's just what I want to say. Like, this is amazing. You guys are doing amazing work. I'm really upset to see that this was one of the positions that was cut. And I don't normally get really upset, but here we are. And so just wearing my like finance hat, this is fiscally irresponsible to cut a department that is saving us money and bringing in so many grants in other departments. And wearing my sustainability hat is very short-sighted.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm really excited.
All right. Other questions, comments? Yes, Director, have you been, I'm sorry. Have you been sworn in?
I have not been sworn in, and I really didn't expect to testify this evening.
Okay, well, we swear you in.
Thanks, Sarah. And Sheila Dormady, and the Chief of Policy and Resiliency for the Mayor.
I'm sorry, you're not another director, you're the chief.
I answer to a lot of different things, for sure, and I've been stand, and I hope to be brief here. And it feels like I'm sorry to step in, and you're doing great, and I just wanted to take a second to brag on our sustainability department here and why we're able to handle this capacity of defunding this position. I want to address one of the concerns that I've heard here tonight. Defunding this position will not affect any of the ability for any of the utility management and cost savings and energy efficiency and ordinance implementation, because that's just how this has been arranged. I do want to say, but as a former director of sustainability for the city of Providence, Priscilla has led this team in a really extraordinary way that no other sustainability director previously has. What she has done is what I had, like, in my wildest dreams imagined to do as a sustainability director, is embed that work across departments all across the city. Because she has done such a good job of developing those partnerships and building the trust and overcoming skepticism, and that's just not the way we do things, attitudes, and because we have such great department directors to work with. She, I think, is able to deliver all of the priorities that we need for the sustainability department. Even with this defunded position, it stays in the budget, it's just defunded. So there's some version of the world where it could come back in a different financial situation. But I'm 100% confident in this group of people being able to deliver all of the things that I know are our shared priorities. And certainly, especially delivering the updates to the climate justice plan. That is 100% a priority of this administration. It is 100% a priority of the sustainability director and the whole team. That is never going to be a ball that gets dropped. That is baked into the mix at this point.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay.
Madam
Yes.
Chair? Can we put this in as an exhibit?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
That's
I
okay.
would like the motion to mark this as the 13th and all right, motion made by Councilor Bob, seconded by Councilor Sanchez, all in favor? Aye. All opposed. Okay, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Director and Administrator, and thank you, Chief, for explanation. I really don't have much to say. I have tremendous amount of respect and gratitude for the work that you guys do. I definitely lean on my colleague, Councilwoman Innerwell, when it comes to a lot of the environmental initiatives. And after the testimony, the public hearing last week, it was very clear that that's like one thing that's a no-brainer. So like I made the commitment to people out in the public already that, you know, given nothing changes dramatically, we passed the state bills that we need to pass. In no world will I support a budget that does not have this position. So whatever that commitment means to anyone in this room, whatever, I just want to state that here in the public setting on behalf of the people that I've made that commitment to already. That's my only comment.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. May I just ask a question about the grant expenditures? I wondered if you might be able to tell me why they're going down and then back up in 25, 26, 27. And just talk a little bit about that.
So that has to do with the grants that are earmarked at that period in time. There's an expectation and hope that more grants will be received in fiscal year 2026, so the match would grow in 2027. But that grant expenditure is the city's share of grant matches. So in fiscal year 2026, there is $78,196 for a public street grant. There's a bar grant. Actually, they're all bar community grants. And there's $34,510 for stormwater community engagement, program engagement, and $26,000, I'm sorry, $2,400 for SOAR.
Yeah, and I'll just add that depending on the nature of the grant and the length that we have it and what match is required, we're able to sometimes shift that grant nature, which is what we were able to do, that in some cases, okay, we didn't need to meet that grant match obligation for fiscal year 26, then we're deferring to 27, et cetera. So there's some that offer more flexibility than others. Really.
Okay. And I'm sorry if this is already passed, under the private contractors line, we just talked about that. Who is the private contractor?
That is translation and interpretation services. Energy fellow, one energy fellow, so there's a cost, URI for that service. And there is a funding $55,000 for the climate justice plan 5-year update.
Yeah, and there we make some some assumptions in terms of, that money, we would have to either hire a technical advisor or an equity consultant, or the things that the climate justice plan had the first time around, but also in terms of community partnerships. And of course, that money is just really essential to helping us find other grant funding. So we're gonna be able to use that as a leverage if it were funded.
Wonderful. All right, that's it for my questions. Anyone, yes, Madam Auditor, I forgot to thank you for being here.
I just have a question, this maybe you all can, on HR. How can the city remove funding from a position where a person is active and leave the position there allowed? Aren't we violating something? Don't we have to remove that position from the classification ordinance? That would be my recommendation, to be clean. I thought you just mentioned that someone that would still leave space for someone to come back. That would kind of, to me, like an, I don't want to say legal, I don't know if it's legal, but, statutes or whatever. So leave them in the classification, but we unfund a position and terminate someone or separate someone. That doesn't make sense that we would leave them in the classification and we can allow the unfunded.
I think it would be akin to a layoff. Because there's lack of funding or lack of work. And I don't, I'd have to think about it, Gina. I don't think it's an issue. I mean, there are a lot of positions that are allowed and not funded. And I don't think it violates, I think that the difference is someone there now, but we could lay off the individual and just keep it in the budget as allowed, but not funded. I don't know if my colleagues in finance think differently.
I would agree with that, Madam Chair and Madam Auditor. It could very well be that, if the level of work is not readily available or apparent in any scenario, not just this, and that work resumes in a subsequent year, and there was revenue that would be identified or cost savings that would be supported, and leaving it in as the allowed position would permit the department to once again be funded.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you so much. I think we appreciate and thank you for I'm so sorry, we can't let you go yet. I forgot about Keith Power Life. We did, yeah, but we didn't ask for a question.
Oh, I asked that.
Are you all set?
Yeah.
Maybe not. All right, we're all set. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
Then we're gonna move on to our regular schedule.
Scheduled program.
Now, people in culture. Okay, well, we're getting organized. So we're going to start. Ask for a motion to mark, this exhibit is number 14. Motion made by Councilor Rainbow, seconded by Councilor Taylor, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Okay, so we have Chief, Wednesday, Deputy Chief, you're on today, and Deputy Chief, thank you so much for coming. And I guess we'll start with our star, star team, and Crystal is the star, so if you want to show it.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is a multi-division department, so I encourage you to turn your books to page 101. We're going to start with the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging first. Total expenditures proposed for this division in fiscal year 2026 are $185,329. This represents a $12,340 increase over the fiscal year 2025 budget of $172,989. In fiscal year 2025, salaries in this department were $58,319. Cost of in fiscal 2026, we are making adjustments for the following items. There are $924 in cost of living increases and $610 increases for total proposed fiscal year 2026 salaries of $59,923. There are no organizational changes. On to slide 5. This department's budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. Their first discretionary cost is printing. These are printed materials for external communications programming. Their first fixed cost is private contractors. There's $10,000 budgeted for summer and winter series training. And there's $1,000 for professional development, which is DEI and COPAC program. And that completes the D division. Would you like me to start here or continue?
Just for a second, I just, the summer and winter series team, I mean, what is that?
That is our equity foundations training. We have done it now 3 cycles. And we've been able to collect all of the information in one series that was the next series. So for example, this last series that we did in the winter, we started with compassion, empathy in the workspace. We did intergenerational workspace, accessibility in the workspace, conflict resolution, facilitation and mediation, and bystander intervention. So we collected data from that. We had 170 participants across 25 departments and decide what happens for the summer, and then we take the data and do the same thing for the following month.
How about the COPAC?
COPAC is our advocacy group. That's the City of Providence Ambassadors Coalition. I'm sure you're familiar with the African American ambassadors. So now we have the Latino ambassadors, the converted ambassadors, and this past year, we added an additional ambassadors program, which is the Asian American Pacific Islanders, and we are rolling out probably by the end of this calendar year, the American Indians ambassadors. So that together we meet quarterly with the mayor, they meet with each other, and they meet with our department for any kind of support.
Hey, anyone, thank you for your excellent work, by the way, as always. I think it's really incredibly valuable thing for the city, and I know you did a great deal of that. Integrity, and I just really appreciate it. Any questions about this particular division?
Thanks, Charlie. Just a clarity question or educational. I know, Director, thank you guys all for the work you guys do. Appreciate all 3 of you very much. So you're the Deputy Chief of People and Culture, right? And you were formerly the Director of
Yes, it's still in terms of that.
So I guess my question is, and I know I guess the restructure was last year, so maybe just a reminder, what was the thought process in like moving you out of the department, but still having that division?
So what we did with this restructuring and the organizational chart will show, we have now the West Wing and we have the East Wing. In the West Wing, we have our talent department, which is a brand new department, also with the restructuring. And we continue to have D. And the idea behind that was that the 2 can be working very closely around building relationships in the community, building nexus and pipelines for recruitment, mentorship, learning and development programs, all of the trainings that you see in the summer and the winter. And the idea was during this multi-phase, multi-year process, which we assume would take at least 2 to 3 years to fully roll out, something that usually takes actually a lot longer. And take these years to collect the data, and by virtue of putting me in the deputy chief position, I'm in a position where I'm part of the executive suite with the chief and deputy chief. And we're able to make decisions that span across the other departments, like OSHA, which is also a new department, and from the experience benefits and so on.
I'm just going to add to that if I may, and excuse me, because I'm really not very well, so I apologize, but, the idea of this structure that we took the former HR department and made it from a matrix structure department that had, decision and, authority operations going downward and sideways to a functional department. So now you have centers of excellence, and the idea is that over the next 3 years, and I had mentioned this last year, this is a trend, last year into this year is a transitional year, this next year will be a performance year. So I will note that for the record here, but, that this transition over time, will change that each of the respective departments operates as centers of excellence, but there are components to each which have a strong degree of synergy. So while I'm very grateful to Dr. Pinto that he serves not just as the deputy chief, but as the interim director, and he will still take on this work. And an example of the position that is currently vacant and unfunded, that the work is still getting done despite the new chief. And it's because we operate cross-functionally, and we are prepared to do that even in this year, where what Crystal and her amazing work, and she's that, and I say this not just because she's in the room, I promise. But what we are prepared to do, which you'll probably understand, is that the increases that are there are the cost of living adjustments, very nominal increases for very specific items. So a lot of things, we either kept things level or flat, if not cut. And we are prepared to do that with a lean budget. We are prepared to do that with a lean team. And I think that it's not denied what is denied of how. So we only work cross-functionally, even though we have our respective primary bodies of work, so that this work is continuing to be done.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up on that. I guess, what would we be doing if we did have a full-time director position?
It would accelerate the body of work. That work would be able to happen probably faster and more functionally. And it's not to take away from the.
No, absolutely not.
It does, right? But, you know, we went into this budget understanding, or last budget understanding that position was unfunded, and we were prepared for that, because this transition takes time. You know, we started to create the framework of putting certain people in certain positions in certain places that we knew had a primary focus. I'm happy to report that we now have a full total awards team. Director Chance, whom of many we have not met yet, is here tonight for total awards. That team has finally been rounded out, but we knew that this transition would take time. This strategic plan is at least a 3-year plan. So we were able to withhold knowing the organizational state of the city of Providence and in its life cycle, and where we are as a department in its transitional cycle, and how we would go about requesting what and when.
If I can add just one other quick thought is, around halfway through the year, we provided a progress report to show that we're actually on track for achieving all of the goals that we had set out for the first year and the second year. One of the major undertakings will be the learning and development curriculum, which right now we're mapping across the city. So we've identified 100+ different programs that different departments need and that we're doing. DEEB is rolling out about 40 of them. And the idea by the end of next year, we will have someone more ready to step into a strategic approach around the learning and development component of it. So it's still part of that very process that we've outlined in that.
Thank you. No, definitely want to emphasize on all the great work that that you guys provide. But here in a public space, I think it's important to acknowledge, you know, what would be a possibility as a, you know, city councilor. I always want to, you know, strive to expand and improve the work. Obviously, we are all aware of the fiscal challenges, but to get your guys' thoughts on what would be possible or what would be accomplished if we did have certain positions funded, I think is a great service to the public. So I appreciate that.
I will note that transitions such as this are phase items. And I'm really known within my own department, my staff can speak for me. I come up with these really cheesy analogies, right? So please pardon me this evening. But you know, it's like when you get a haircut in the barber shop. When the haircut starts, it doesn't look right. If you were to stop 10 minutes into it, it's probably gonna look crazy. But when it's done, it looks great. You know, and that's no different here. You know, this last year was a discovery year. We found areas for improvement. We found things that we noted, and things that we highlighted. We got creative with what we had. And we put foundational and really beginning steps in place so that in future years we can build upon that. And that's what's proposed here tonight.
All right, yeah, that's a great.
I'm gonna go right back to what we were talking about, these two vacancies. My concern is, the monies, and we're gonna have another tough year next year. I mean, that's a given. And we have these two unfunded, positions that you, so you're doing 3 jobs basically, under this. I can see people saying, well, why are we gonna pay $200,000 to put other people in? If he's been doing it for, by that time, it'll be what, 3 years, 2 years?
A year in this construction.
Yeah. I'm just a little bit concerned, especially being we're getting rid of a position that is funded, you know, that a person is working, and yet we're gonna say, oh, next year we're gonna have these 2 people come, 2 different people, if we get them, you know, because it's just, I don't see it changing. I don't see the climate change, and I don't see where this money, because this is unfunded. So that means there's no money floating around in the background anywhere. So we're gonna have to come up with these funds. How are you proposing to come up with these funds if we're still strapped?
So I think it's important to note that the reason that these positions are being filled at this given period of time is because that there are different foundational steps that have to be built first. So it's not to say that Dr. Pinto is doing 3 full-time jobs. I couldn't testify before you all and say that today. It wouldn't be an accurate statement. But what I can say is that there are certain components of those jobs that are being shared within his body of work while those foundational steps are being built. And some of the things that are slated for this upcoming year are things like technology development. We are currently working within Infor directly to further expand on our current ERP system so that we can expand the utilization of it. That will help with efficiency, it'll help with data management, and it'll help us with human capital management. We are actually doing that in a way where it's creative, where there's actually zero net cost in the city by doing it. So we worked with our vendor partners elsewhere to come up with the money to actually support that, so there's actually a zero net cost in the city by doing that. Which is a really unique scenario to be in, but we got creative, we created what we have, and it's to note that it's not that Dr. Pinto's doing 3 full-time jobs, it's that we need to apply our attention in certain areas first before we can get to applying our attention in other areas later, and therefore that body of work has not expanded to the capacity which would require those FTEs at this given period of time. But by then, and at that point, I would come before you all with the data and the information to support those requests if those requests and when those requests materialize.
Okay, all right, then we can proceed, unless there are any questions, any more questions again? Okay.
The next division is HR Executive Administration. The budget details are on page 104 in the budget. Total expenditures in the division are $1,951,098. This represents a $57,412 increase over the fiscal year 2025 budget, or 3.3%. On slide 8, fiscal 2025 salaries were $1,051,424. In fiscal 2026, we are adjusting the salary line item for cost of living increases of $18,868 and step increases of $15,837 for total proposed salaries of $1,086,129. This department's budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. The first discretionary cost is fees not classified at $3,166. This is bus passes for city employees. So this department does pay for any city employees eligible for bus pass, not just the department's individual employees. Postage, advertising and marketing, which again is citywide job advertisement, not necessarily just the positions in this department. Dues and subscriptions, which are professional memberships for their staff. Private contractors is budgeted at $75,000. That represents arbitration fees, any necessary investigators or other employee-related kind of contractors that the department would need. Professional development has been budgeted at $40,000, which is consistent with fiscal year 2025, and this is for citywide learning and development initiatives. And legal expenses have been budgeted at $15,000 consistent with 2025, and this represents attorney fees associated with labor relations. On to supplies in this budget, the first discretionary line item is office supplies, which is self-explanatory as is stationery. And they also have a copier in lease maintenance that costs approximately $3,000 per year.
Okay, yeah, that's a great, so you're pausing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, you
Oh,
go.
I can continue, like, for everyone else here.
Okay.
I'd like to pause.
Okay.
Councilor Britt.
Bus passes. Who's getting bus passes? Why are they getting bus passes? And if the people are getting bus passes, are the ones that don't get the bus passes getting gas?
Yeah. It's part of the CBA, correct? Provide this message?
I just want to know, I just
Yeah.
question.
No, so my understanding is that the bus passes, this has been a partnership between the city and RIPTA for quite some time to encourage the use of public transportation and limit the number of cars and all the things that come with that. So my understanding is that those who receive bus passes do not get city parking, so they wouldn't get city parking and they wouldn't pay, to receive money for any kind of gas reimbursement. It would strictly be, there's like no double dipping is basically what I'm saying. So if we have an employee, I think in our department, we have 2 right now that do not drive. We would pay for their bus passes, and the bus passes are distributed based on need. So if someone, drives to work 4 days a week and wants a bus pass for 1 day a week, they wouldn't receive the bus pass. Historically, the package that RIPTA offered was a pay per ride package. So I think it's like $1.60 or something per ride. They eliminated that program and now I believe it's $65 per month per employee. So that's when the city kind of adjusted who was getting them, because it wasn't on an as needed basis. It was more or less, so the 2 in our department in particular that need these bus passes, they do not drive. So that's why they have them. But the way the program is managed is individual departments would be responsible for paying the cost of this per month. So if they've identified individuals in their department that would require the bus pass, the departments that we prepare the bill, and then my understanding is that it gets charged back to the respective departments for the costs associated with these bus passes.
Okay,
No, go right ahead.
okay,
Councilor
just
Britt.
clarification, so. Not that I'm telling you to take anybody's bus pass, but believe me, I am not saying that. I'm just saying, if we're giving bus passes to the people that can't drive, are you compensating the ones that do drive with gas or anything else?
No, there's no compensation for that unless they're driving for city business and we do reimburse at the IRS mileage rate.
And that would be a contractual
That's what I'm
CBA,
saying, yeah.
if in fact they're using their car to run errands, to do deliveries. And the department justifies it, then pursuant to the contract, they would be reimbursed. But they would have to use their vehicle for work inspections or whatever.
It's a small amount of money. But to me, it's like, I don't drive, so you're gonna pay for me to get in. The person sitting next to me drives. But they're paying for their gas, they're paying for wear and tear of their car, but they're not getting compensated at all. I don't know. I think it's a little iffy. If I'm sitting next to you and I see you getting a bus pass, I want a bus pass too. That's just me. Go ahead.
All right, Councilor Anderball.
I was just gonna, for the first time maybe ever, disagree with my colleague, Councilwoman. My note next to the bus pass was, oh my gosh, thanks, because it is reducing like congestion downtown to have like fewer people have to drive downtown. And I've been trying to encourage a lot of the large employers in my neighborhood to partner with RIPTA to do a similar program. And I think if more of the large employers like the city were doing this, RIPTA would be in a different financial position. And so like, if the other people who are driving wanted to get a bus pass, I think they could get one, they just have to stop driving to work. And so it's a great incentive to like, actually not, and we've Kennedy Plaza right here, so folks can just end their trip right here. So it's a great way to reduce some of the congestion and like overflow parking. And then people who do need to drive to like eat at our restaurants and go see a show, there's plenty of parking for them, all the things. But so I think and it's such a little amount of money. I want people to do it. I like more people to sign up. That's awesome. Yeah. So my note was, yay, thanks. My notes.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions. On the miscellaneous receipts. 48001. Why is there? Why the difference? I mean, it's small, but I'm just asking what that miscellaneous revenue is that it goes from. Weird. It was low in 23, up in 24, low in 25, and then non-existent.
Most of that comes from jury duty, believe it or not. The city pays employees while they're on jury duty, but the exchange is that the payment they receive for that needs to be returned to the city, and so that is where this revenue comes from. Yes.
Because they're getting, if you don't mind, they're getting paid for the day.
Oh.
So
Yes.
if they're getting paid for the day, then once they get that check, they sign it back over to the city.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's a mitigating, or mitigating.
Mitigating, okay, all right, thank you very much, and then I'm just wondering, where did we stop, why the fluctuation on the 52,175 advertising and marketing? 30, 15, 30, 25, 26, and 27, it was just,
Yeah, so the reduction in fiscal year 2026 was to help constrain this budget. However, we know we have quite a few vacant positions and you know, we're trying to evaluate what the actual need is. At this point in time, the 27 really is a projection. It's not a legally adopted item, so we can take a closer look at that projection for final budget if you'd like.
well, yes, thank you. Okay, I think that's it for this particular one. Anyone else? Yeah, thank you. Madam Auditor.
Do any employees have any contracts besides the union contracts?
I'm sorry?
Are there any employees that have unions that have contracts besides the union contracts with the city?
Are you meaning individual contracts?
Yes.
To my knowledge now,
And Gene, you're talking about an employment contract? Yeah, I don't know of any.
I don't know either.
I would defer to Paul.
Yes, please.
Do you have a list of vacant funded positions in the budget?
Me?
No, I'm assuming HR would have it.
Do I have vacant funded positions in this budget? There will be positions that will be vacant by the time this goes into play, potentially, yes.
So you, I don't know, I'm this budget, I'm confused, because I thought that was something HR usually did. Is that a different role now?
You know, are you talking about overall,
Overall.
Madam Auditor, not just your department?
Oh, okay.
Vacancy.
Yeah,
Vacancy report, basically.
we run vacancy reports for that particular item, handled by finance.
It's, I'm sorry.
Handled by finance.
May we have a vacancy report? If we haven't received one, may we have one?
We can start working on that.
Is this something that's easily available?
No, it is something that will have to be hand. It will take a few, at least days to do.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry to ask, but we will.
yes, please.
Can you tell if there are any non-contractual wage increases in the budget? Aside from the one from sustainability, we're really on that one.
The only contractual, or the only non-contractual wage increase of like ordinance change that's the budgeted is the sustainability one that I'm aware of.
One last question.
Yes, go right ahead.
Do you know when the salary review commission will meet again?
I believe the mayor's office is handling that item. I do not have an estimated date. That's something that
Okay.
I would. Sorry.
Chief, I just wanted to ask, do you have any role in that, in the salary review commission at all? Are you on it, or do you have any role with regard to the salary commission?
I have not been a part of it to date, but it hasn't materialized into my increment.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyone have any other before we proceed? Thank you. We're ready?
Okay. The next division is Occupational Safety and Health Administration. The details of this budget can be found on page 107. Total expenditures in this division are $2,541,380. This represents a $33,840 increase over the fiscal year 2025 budget, or 1.35%. The salaries in this division were budgeted in 2025 at $237,955. Cost of living increases have been added for $4,592. Step increases at $1,951. For proposed total fiscal 2026 salary of $244,498. When we look at operational fixed and discretionary costs, there are fees not classified at $200,000. These are attorney fees, litigation case events, comp claim. There's also additionally $86,000 budgeted for private contractors. This is a $41,000 increase over the fiscal year 2025 budget. And this covers the RIDLT annual assessment, each for Concentra, EANE, IMEs, or the medical consultants.
You just, we're gonna send you a description. What were those?
Thank you.
Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training, IMEs are independent medical evaluations. The medical consultant is a consultant that serves the retirement board if there are medical retirements that are being evaluated. For further questions, I'll ask defer to my director of culture.
I think, I'm not sure, do we have any questions? I just wanted to know how they were.
Yes.
I don't think I have any questions regarding any of those individual things, but thank you for coming. Yeah. Yes, please.
Today, how many employees are, how many civilian employees are on workers' comp? I know you don't take care of public safety.
No, we don't do, public safety, we don't do Providence water and school department. We have 60 employees on workers.
And is that unusually high or normal?
That's pretty stable at this point, right now. We have 17 that are grandfathered in. We have 6 that are currently, that been approved accident disability, transitioning from workers' comp to accidental. That means us with roughly 35 applications that are managing. What the expectation.
And what's the longest? And how, like, what's the average?
So we do, I think I provided to your department, job dates, how many, days that, they were affecting our work, but it will vary. So what you'll notice with workers' comp, there's actually peaks and valleys. You'll see that, especially right now, with this really good season where it's summertime, not to imply that employees are on workers' comp just to be out of work. I hesitate to do that, but you'll see that there's peaks during the summer hours. You'll also see that there are peaks during the holiday hours. Our goal for the department is to make sure that we are actively monitoring the case. One of the things that I've recently done as well is updating our return to work letters. So that's sent out to all the providers' offices that the employee is treating with. It's what's the target date for the employee to come back to work if they are unable to do so currently. After they've been treating at an urgent care, for example, for more than a month, is it appropriate at that point to transfer them to an orthopedic specialist or a specialist to follow up in the case? We found that, the more active our department is with the provider's office, the more likely we are to have the employee actually return back to work. Sometimes you kind of get where the employees are in that ether zone where they're not actually following up. And the doctor's office is not hearing from us or our medical providers with trust, and they just kind of flow. So the goal of the department is are actively following up on all the cases, and I've noticed earlier returns with that.
Very much.
Yes, please.
You still do suitable alternative employment?
So suitable alternative employment, is when an employee is capable of returning back to work in some capacity, but they're not able to come back to their full-duty jobs. Now, some positions that's just not going to be feasible. For example, if you are a zookeeper, the department still has to have a position that's available to you. But we do have a lot of clerical positions. So one of the things that we try to make sure is that we offer it when it's applicable for those employees. So that's one of the things that I do still offer. One of the things as well that my team monitors is when an employee does have some restrictions, but that restriction falls within their job capabilities. So at that point, you may still be able to get a full release back to work as long as those limitations are notated. So it's one of the things that we're actively on watching. I want to just add to that, if I may, and not that I want to speak too much for Director Baston, but I want to be prepared to see, one of the things that Director Baston has increased in doing is making sure that we manage the assessment of these cases, so that we facilitate care to return employees back to work in a more timely manner. Now, I would not quote me on this because I'm not looking at my metric before me, but one of the things that we did implement this year across all departments are metrics. And as far as Director Baston's metric, I want to say we've had 26 employees return back to work approximately by the management of this case management. And what I will note there is that while we work actively to communicate with medical providers to ensure that we implement or we execute or effectuate timely IMEs or independent medical evaluations, and that we find suitable alternative arrangements for employment where feasible and possible, we're able to return employees back to some capacity for that time being, so that we're lessening our days away to restricted time, or the measurement of how much money is spent over the claim. One of the things that he is doing now and has started or has begun to facilitate is a hazard assessment across departments. One of the things that I don't think I've had an opportunity to mention, so I won't take too much time by saying this, is that one of the things we did start this year is a policy review committee. So now there's an internal cross-functional committee that reviews policies over, and I'm not to say within OSHA, but across all departments respectively. There have been, I don't say approximately 30 policies that haven't been existed that are already in the way drafts that are under review at this given period of time. And the idea is that, and I mentioned this in the beginning, that we were in a discovery and transition year. You find out what works, you find out what doesn't work, you find out where there are opportunities for improvement, and we tackle those things. And then we plan for the future. So I will give credit where it's due with Director Bassi has been on the ball and trying to do these things. He has started the work to do the hazard assessment. So we're not doing just managing of the cases, which is why they're OSHA and not workers' comp anymore. But we're actually doing preventive management, like training and development and policy work and framework, so that we are accountable for all the liabilities that are posed upon the city. So kudos to you, Director Bassi.
And hopefully next year when you reach out on the goal key, we are navigating the food trucks using some of our obvious points that benefits we have. That sort of rewards, as we've been renamed, has been great for doing, so that we can bring more trainings across the board. Because the goal is not just to be reactive as you get these employees that are injured, but trying to do proactive steps. One of the things that you guys will see next month for safety month, which is June, is rate of fires. I'm gonna try to see if we can get a trivia out there, get more engagement with employees so that they can see, hey, how can I stay safe at work? And when you see a hazard, who do I report it to?
Excellent, excellent. Yes, Madam
I've
Auditor.
been working with him, in my office I've been working with him, but you all don't know what he does, so sometimes when I do ask, it's just sometimes to let them know as well what you do. So-
I absolutely know, and by the way, I never regret getting in touch with Gina. It gives me a chance to shine and show people. So, thank you very much.
She just did.
Yes.
You were shining in a showcase. Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Well done.
Okay, any other questions on this division? Are you all set, Madam Auditor? Okay. I'll begin.
Okay, excellent. I encourage you to turn your budget books to page 114 for the total award. In fiscal year 2026, total proposed budget is $29,565,860. This represents a $1,515,115,115,160 increase of 5.4% over fiscal year 2025. One thing to keep in mind that this is where 100% of your retiree medical is budgeted, which is why this budget is growing by such a large percentage. Fiscal year 2025 salaries are budgeted at $534,282. In fiscal 2026, we've adjusted the following: cost of living increases at $14,693 and step increases at $15,232 for total proposed fiscal 2026 salaries of $564,207. This budget has not very many line items. Most of them are in the benefits area, but when we look at totals and services and supplies, they do have one fixed cost of $40,000, and this is for a benefits related software project. There is a $40,000 revenue associated with this that you'll see budgeted in miscellaneous revenue. So this is a budget neutral expense, and should the this funding be reduced, we would also use the revenue. So
yes, not to worry about.
Thank you so much. So, can you explain how that also, I think my brain isn't looking, how does that also generate revenue?
yeah, so it's being reimbursed. So
Oh.
yes. So someone is paying for it.
Thank you.
And then, I just wanted to ask, there's a benefit analyst under federal rewards that's the funded, possibly, is that correct, or are you totally funded?
No, they're totally funded. I think you may be looking, are you looking at the personnel supplement, how there's two benefit, or which? I'm not
I'm
sure.
looking at your.
Yeah, no, the benefits analyst is listed here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm over on,
Are you
I'm
looking at
sorry, I'm looking at the
performance
performance analyst.
So you're looking at an employee experience and that position is currently vacant at this time.
Is that going to be today?
It is, it's in the process of being posted now.
Okay, that's, I'm sorry, I gotta quickly read. So that is under who?
That's under employee experience. On employee experience, so the HR executive administration budget is budgeted accounts for 3 divisions. It accounts for the executive suite, both deputy chiefs, myself, and our HR business partner. It also accounts for the Department of Employee Experience. So that's led by a director of employee experience and EEO officer, charge position, the EEO officer, which you all may be aware. Our operations manager, an HR generalist, as well as a performance analyst, so for the common to the HR field and HRS analyst. The current common with that set position, and position in the department, which we are going to seek for this position.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, thanks, Rowan. Did you, what you just spoke about, chief, is that regarding, I see the same name and human resource business partner and acting director, is that what we're talking about right now?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
In our org chart, it looks like it's the same, employee listed.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so that, our current HR business partner is currently in the active capacity of the director of employee experience, the EEO officer.
Are both positions funded?
Yes.
Yes, but they're only being paid at one salary, they're not being paid twice.
So are you hiring for one of them?
Yes, and we're in finalist interviews now.
And where would that employee will go back to the business partner position?
If that individual is not selected for that position, yes, that person will return back to an HR business partner.
So you're hiring for the business partner position?
No, for the director of employee experience and EEO officer position.
Gotcha, thank you.
So if that the officer ends up taking the job, and what are you doing? I'm sorry, the human resources business partner.
Would become the vacant position that I was being back.
They can.
And funded.
And funded.
It is currently vacant. Well, it's currently funded, but it's, you have an individual that is working essentially on rank in a different position, its capacity, as the acting director.
And what would that be funded at?
The current salary that individual.
A
is at
16
now.
to A 18.
18, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
What is the human resources business partner do?
So the HR business partner, I actually, since you asked this question, I answered this exact question once year.
Oh, I thought you were about to answer me correctly because I said it 10 minutes ago.
No, but last year I did describe this, right? And that is, this person is a strategic partner that works across all of the various functions in DPC, but also throughout the city. So they are strategists, they deal with people problems, they deal with policy writing, they deal with employee relations concerns, they deal with, this person is essentially my left and right hand.
Oh,
But this person is a strategic analyst and a generalist in nature. This person really worked in executing HR services through both vertically and horizontally, as we would call it in HR capital. Working with managers, directors, chiefs, et cetera, as well as with department managers and its employee staff, as well as the components of labor relations as pertains to that body of work.
Okay, so the hours should.
Oh, no.
It's all right.
I'm sorry, I'm just good. So these hours, this person right here is gonna be working with everybody across that top line. with them.
Correct. And the HR business partner reports directly to me.
Okay, so that's why the arrow is.
Yes,
And auditor.
Have you squeezed this year, or is it all proposed?
These are current people.
Okay, so I did find an increase on your total rewards vehicle. That's that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's an error, so I'll be correcting that for final budget. When we were building the database of ordinances, the staff accidentally grabbed the wrong salary on that one, so I'll be amending the final ordinance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yep, that was, I was looking at that.
And our manager of total rewards would be here tonight, but Dr. Daphne Seaver is currently preparing to commence with receiving his PhD. So in Florida at this time, but we do have a full total rewards team at this time, so very excited. for them.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you, Total Rewards team. Yes, please, Madam Auditor.
We currently have, enrollment going on for the benefits.
We do.
Do, do non-union have to be enrolled the first time and how long?
We are, well, first time to my understanding in ever, but we are undergoing, so throughout this year, I will note that we conducted a series of audits. This year, we just started the transition year, and one of the things we found is that, to a point I think you've mentioned actually in the past, that we have a fiduciary responsibility to ensure compliance. And with that, we now have a phase schedule, where we are engaging in active open enrollments. And active open enrollments essentially means that the respective groups that are under said active enrollments will need to recertify. Right? And for this period of time, through the operational capacity and necessity of the city to perform it in an effective manner, the non-union group, particularly this year, is going to be required to recertify. Over the span of years, the respective groups would need to recertify as an active enrollment, which essentially means that if you have current insurance, then you need to recertify that you wish to continue said current insurance.
I'm sorry, does that apply to all of us? Because I'm sorry, as a counselor, I'm just gonna say, I never looked at that. Open enrollment, are we receiving that notification? Yes, Madam Auditor.
How would the non-union members notify?
So I can speak to that. This is Director Chance. They will notify via emails in respect to the distribution lists that we have in the city. Also, the department director will notify as well. In addition to many other communications such as open enrollment benefit fairs we've held and the webinars. So that's how the communications have been distributed.
If I may continue.
Yes, please.
So I did reach out to you and I explained to you that not everybody got them. I know a full department that did not get them. One of my employees did, one of my employees did not. I don't think anyone in city council was notified. Online, it's completely opposite. It just says if you already have them, you do not need to be enrolled. So it's confusing as to union, non-union. It's very confusing. A lot of people do not know. And I told you specifically, and I was kind of abruptly shut down. I said, okay. So everybody, including council people, have got to be enrolled and have to do your paperwork or you will not get your benefits.
What's the enrollment period again?
It's the month of May.
Okay, so I would ask, because I think that, thank you very much, Madam Auditor. I think unless some of my colleagues have received notifications. Have you, Councilor Sanchez?
Yeah, but I assume since I was already receiving coverage that it was automatically like years past. So I think this is an important topic to be discussing. I was just gonna ask our staff if they could email every counselor and let them know about this information.
And I'm also worried about people who aren't council.
Yeah, your supporting staff.
My supporting staff and also whatever department might not know. So if you wouldn't mind doing a thorough notification, I don't know how you can do it.
I can assure you that everyone will be notified again if you have not already, but it's my understanding that email distribution did go out in not just a singular email, but in multiple emails, because in the first email, we learned that the distribution list needed to be revised, and that's not like necessarily in our control, but then we pivoted to ensure that we got fair communication out to everyone. We also announced the benefits fairs as well as the webinars that have gone on to all staff. Were offered to all staff, and that information is completely.
Okay, who's maintaining that list? I'm just saying, I think that, you know, I'm not sure how that can be corrected, but it's just. Which one, and a lot of people don't have it. So, anyway, if you look into it, I appreciate it. Okay, anything else?
How do you verify when one employee submits their paperwork? How does that employee know that their paperwork has been submitted? Because I submitted that, we get a verification back.
So did you send it via email? We send it via email. We have an inbox that we are responding to, but we're also at high capacity, which I've also communicated a few times via communications, but you will get an acknowledgement email.
Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, last question, but I am a broke person that heavily depends on the health insurance, so this topic is very important to me. Is the re-enrollment, that's all a paper process, right, still?
At this current time, yes. One of the projects that I mentioned earlier is the infra project that's currently underway now, that will carry into this year. The one that said, mentioned is the cost to the city. And that is so that we can actually develop through Lawson, a benefits admin platform, so that people can electronically enroll in the benefits of the future state.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chair, if I may, I can report to the committee and yourself that on April 23rd, Ms. Chance sent out an email announcing that coming up in the month of May, there will be open enrollment for non-union employees specifically stated. Once again, on May 6th, she wrote again indicating the same thing, that open enrollment for all non-union employees must be taken. So
But did it say that we had to, even though we had enrolled before, that is there any?
It said-
Yes.
if I may, it says non-union employees are having an active enrollment and must complete all benefit enrollment.
Okay,
forms.
thank you.
Yes.
Well, we apologize for having us not.
But not the only time you play on the distribution list. That's
Okay,
all
I can't speak to that, but I'm sure that that the department can,
Well, if we wouldn't mind just because we all have to do it, if we wouldn't mind taking a look at that.
by all means,
Thank you, Chief,
my pleasure.
because, thank you, that shows that they went out and we believe you. So anyway, thank you. Okay. Yes, Councilor Graves, do you have any other questions?
I just want to say that it seems like this adversarial thing between our auditor and others. She's working for us to get us the best information that we can get. If there's questions that come before you, and she's asking, could you please answer and respond so that we can have it? And that way we won't be sitting there saying, oh, I put the room, so please, try to work together, because we're all on the same team.
I agree.
We are all on the same team, and I just don't want that to be this back and forth. We're supposed to be working for the city and getting things done as best as we can. So the only way we're gonna do that is if we can be cordial to one another. And a lot of times she's asking questions for me, because I don't know. I'm still in the learning process, just like others here. If I don't know, I go to her and ask, or I go to Alan and ask, and I would like for them to get an answer or say, well, you know what, maybe this is something that needs to be said in a different environment. Maybe we need to have a closed session under whatever it needs to be done, whatever steps need to be taken, can we please take them? And could we please, like I said, let's be cordial to one another. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you, Councilor.
Absolutely.
Yes, Councilor Ingerbach.
Just because we're at the end, I just wanted to thank the chief and his team, because you guys do a stunning amount of work. And I feel like every time you guys came, I learned so much, and like so impressed by like the love, just like the level of knowledge you have, and I'm so grateful that you're on the team, so.
And Chief, thank you. I also want to say thank you. And you gave me a copy of your progress report for 2025. By the way, I think a summary in our budget book was excellent also. Is this something that you want me to distribute, or?
So that's actually been already shared with all of you. We sent it out to all of you a few months ago.
Okay.
And what we'd like to do is that on a periodic basis, we'd like to communicate the work that we're doing. And it's not just gonna talk about the progress, it's gonna talk about areas of opportunity for improvement. It's gonna talk about the challenges that we're facing and what we're looking to do in the future. This is not anything to say that we're perfect. There is no team in the city I would posit as a perfect team. But what I will note is that it's a work in progress and we are moving in the right direction. So my hope is that through these efforts and that there's a degree of transparency, we're practical. But that we can communicate on the work that we are doing to you all.
Well, I'm gonna say thank you, and that, what I love about this and the way you organize it is, there's measurable progress. And, those metrics are awesome, and, all the very detailed plan that you have in place, I'm not sure I'll read every page of this, but, I did read every word of what was in the budget book, and was very impressed. So I have to thank you.
Madam Chair, would you like, or Paul, would you like that part of the record?
You can make it part of the record.
This marked, this is the Department of People and Culture progress report fiscal year 2025, and we'll have it marked as exhibit
15,
15.
All right, we did yes, second, already moved by Councilor Ingram, seconded by Councilor Gray, all in favor?
I'm leaving this.
All opposed, thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to. Thank you.
Well, that cleared the room.
Yeah, that was. Oh, my God. You're now, just like all the time. I thought those people were.
Okay, so.
All right, now we all, thank you. City solicitor, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it. You haven't heard. We have getting this.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a lot lighter than the other.
You just want me to go. Yankees, I have to keep them, I have to keep them going. I still got 3 more departments. Yes.
There's nothing in Rhode Island that has to do with that. Oh, good seeing.
We should have.
No, I grew up going to games. I might have attended that I'm a diehard fan.
So we are now going to work, this law deferred proposed budget document as 16. Moved by Councilor Craig, seconded by Councilor Ingram, all in favor? All opposed. Well, thank you so much, solicitor. For coming, and now we're going to start with the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this packet has a little bit of a different mix of ingredients that I'd like to make sure everyone's aware of because
That's exciting.
Yeah. Well, first up, when we were preparing this packet this morning, I realized that we had a little bit of an administrative issue when compiling the book and the budget details for the law department page was accidentally put in the wrong spot, and so in your budget book, it's the non-departmental details, so we have printed the budget details for you.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, that was, it was very confusing, yes, and when these export out, they're like individual PDFs that you have to then rearrange, and when our admin was rearranging, she just missed one.
Yeah.
So we will catch that for final budget. The online budget book is accurate, and these are the numbers that are in the budget, but I want to make sure we're all working off of it.
Okay, so do you want to hand that out? Or?
It's in your packet.
Oh, I was gonna.
Yep.
Oh, okay. There it is, sorry.
Yes.
Maybe we have one for Councilor Peterson, who is just not this. And we just lost Councilor.
Substitute.
I don't have a deep enough voice to be the
Okay, here we go.
Additionally, in your packet, I know the legal accrual has been a very prominent topic of discussion, and there was at one point a request for information on what was in that legal accrual. So I have included the pages from our audit that have the balances for you all, so you can see the financial statements associated with that. So those are the two changes to it. All right.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Trying to get ahead where we can.
The best.
All right, so I am on slide 2 of our PowerPoint presentation. The law department, as you may or may not know, is a revenue generating department. We budget $100,000 in miscellaneous revenue in the general fund. However, the vast majority of the revenue they collect is recorded either in departmental revenues, because they're collecting past due invoices with other departments, or are in our pension fund for things that relate to securities and antitrust litigation, or in our medical fund. So The $100,000 you'll see representing this budget is not inclusive of 100% of the revenues they do bring into the city for all of their activities. Oh, and oh gosh, that was a very big one, the opioid settlement dollars. So if you remember, Director Ferrara had talked about how she's utilizing those dollars. A lot of those were as a result of the work of our solicitor's office. They're just earmarked for specific dedicated things, so they can. Total proposed expenditures for fiscal year 2026 are $7,851,470. This represents a $299,439 decrease from the fiscal year 2025 budget of $8,150,909, or 3.67%. If you turn to slide 4, you will see we have a few personnel related changes in this department. Fiscal year 2025 salaries were $3,195 or $3,195,298. In fiscal year 2026, we are adjusting for the following items. Cost of living increases at $38,403. Step increases for eligible employees at $44,862. They have defunded a vacant paralegal one position for $51,450. They have defunded the Ethics Education Commission Coordinator, which was also a vacant position at $79,877. And they have net eliminated one city solicitor. What that has turned out to in the position FTE count is 4 senior city solicitors have been defunded. The salary of those positions is $524,690. However, 3 assistant city solicitors, which are at a lower salary, have been funded at $208,638. So a net change in 1 city solicitor down, the net decrease of 1 down, for total fiscal year 2026 salaries of $2,831,184.
It can't just stop. Is there more chart?
Yes.
Yeah, in the end.
Yes, sorry, I just, I'm pausing because I don't know that we've seen any salary lines decrease for departments. And I just wanted to ask the city solicitor how he's doing it. How he's able to do the work he's able to do. With your change, your lower salary, lower number of people.
Well, I'll give credit to the team in Golden. So we currently have 16 attorneys and 9 non-attorney staff. And we have postings for 2 new attorney positions, not new, but filled attorney positions. So hopefully we will soon be at 18 attorneys. The staff, both attorney and non-attorney staff of the law department are very hardworking, talented, dedicated public servants. So the work we do is always as a team. And so to fulfill all the responsibilities that our department has, which are many, while losing some positions, we fulfill those responsibilities as a team. So the paralegal position was dedicated to housing court prosecution, and we have a longtime housing court prosecution coordinator, Jasmine Chappell, who is phenomenal. And Belkis Arias is the lead secretary. And we have other non-legal assistants in the office that also pitch in. So we're able to collectively fulfill the responsibilities of the paralegal. The ethics education, the person who was the ethics education coordinator, who works in tandem as a team with our municipal integrity officer, a few months ago became our housing court prosecutor. So elevated housing court prosecutor. And to fulfill those responsibilities, we're fortunate that every single attorney in the law department receives substantive ethics training on an annual basis. And I think collectively as a department, we stay up to date on exactly what is happening with the state ethics commission and all applicable ethics rules and laws, and so work to support our municipal integrity officer, who works hard to respond to all questions and requests from staff, city staff or officers, and to continue to provide proactive trainings to new board and commission members and anyone who seeks.
Well, I have to thank you. I'm a big fan of your department and of you. And I think you're. That team. You know, I think you guys do a phenomenal job. I just don't know how you do it. And you've got a few other people.
Madam Chair, not to
Yeah.
interrupt, but I just would like to point out for the record, in case, I think you know, but I don't know if all the members know, but Jeff and you don't blush, but Jeff is the president of IMLA, International Municipal Lawyers Association. It's like the major league of municipal attorneys, and it is an incredible position, and kudos to the boss. I mean, it's unheard of. There's been never anyone from, Providence so it's quite the accomplishment. So I want to point it out to the committee. I'm sorry, boss. Yeah, I'm in trouble. I think my position is gonna be defunded, so.
I will vote on a budget that defunds your position.
Yeah. It grows. These positions that have been defunded, I remember last year, we were looking for, people, are these the positions and they just never got filled?
No, the ethics education coordinator position was occupied.
Okay,
And that person got elevated to a different position.
Okay.
As housing court prosecutor. The paralegal position had been empty, and I think we're always having challenging budget issues with the city, and we were managing to navigate without filling that position, and so we just have managed. As far as the attorney position, there's always flux. We've lost people. There are a couple of attorneys who left, got different positions. And so we filled some, but we've left some unfilled because we never want to fill a position until we know whether I don't want to hire somebody and then not have the position funded 3 months later. So we kind of, again, the team pulls together, works hard to cover more work than they should have to, because we're not going to start bringing people, and we put a lot of time and effort into the hiring process. So we do thorough interview and reference check process, so it takes a while. We definitely don't want to bring some, the training takes a while. We do have 2 new attorneys that we've hired during this fiscal year that are both finished law school last May. And they're amazing. We really nailed it on those hires, but it's still, there's still a learning curve. And so if that takes time, and you want to make sure you hire the right people. And also be able to hire them and keep them, and not have to lay them off 3 months, because they're not fun.
If I just may add, the practice of kind of what I consider truing up the city solicitors every budget year is not uncommon. So us defunding them is bringing them down 1 net FTE, but the reason that it was, more senior city solicitors versus assistant city solicitors was because those were the staff that had vacated those positions. And typically when it is vacant, we will then backfill at the lowest level. And it somewhat has to do with the fact that, as the solicitor stated, these positions are somewhat fluid. Typically, if he's able to, we're hiring at the lower level, but, and which is oftentimes replacing a senior solicitor. So there's a budgetary savings with that.
Right. And it's a double benefit, I'd say. And it's budgetary savings, but also it leads to opportunities for advancement as people really demonstrate that they've earned advancement. So we've tried really hard with our hires to generally hire newer, younger, and it does end up being cheaper, but then also provide opportunities for advancement so that we can retain people.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Just quickly on salaries, thank you for the explanation. Are we still significantly far away from the state in terms of salaries, generally speaking?
I wouldn't say far away, we're lower. But we've made some progress.
Thank you.
Is that the Attorney General's office? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I know that's been, something that's happened in the past. A lot of our attorneys become state attorneys.
Madam Chair, it's typically Attorney General, but we did have someone last year leave to go to the state. In a different, not the Attorney General, but it's a state position, so.
We also had some from Attorney General. He's sitting right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's how awesome we are.
Yes. For itself. Okay, shall we proceed?
Certainly. On to slide 5, this department's budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. Their first discretionary costs, which may not be discretionary, is fees not classified. That is their outside counsel line item for any sort of outside counsel they need to retain. There's $3,600 budgeted for postage. Dues and subscriptions are budgeted at $16,200. These are annual memberships and dues for the solicitor's office. Pay of claims and damages is budgeted at $800,400, and that is a flat number that is typically budgeted year over year, and it covers any sort of legal claims that are outside of the legal accrual. Private contractors are budgeted at $196,500. This funding is for stenographic sort of services, court filing fees, interpreters, constables, arbitrators, and appraisal services as necessary. Contract services and training are budgeted at $30,000. And this provides staff training to the entire solicitor's office. Reference books are budgeted at $55,804. This is the Westlaw subscription. So for law books, and the solicitor can collaborate on why those are critical to his operations. Office supplies are budgeted at a modest $6,000. Rent for their occupation on 444 is $488,609, and copier lease and lease maintenance are budgeted at $8,760, which is a $3,760 increase over fiscal year 2026. Or 25.
Yes, Councilor Ball.
Thank you. Just a quick question, under private contractors, how are you able to save $100,000 from last year's budget? Those seem like pretty stable.
Yeah, so that is there was a large property valuation based case that was settled this year, and so we are reducing the amount we need to estimate for appraisal services in the year's budget.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Is this, I think, the outside, the 800, it's the pay of claims and damages. So this amount is fixed, you said every year, 800,400?
Yes, that's been the amount budgeted every year. I prepared budget, I think it was fairly consistent prior to any budget.
Okay, and the legal accrual, is this a time that we should be reviewing that?
Certainly, yeah.
Like, why don't we do that? Because I just myself would like to understand exactly how these two amount, this amount.
Certainly. So one of the requirements of all municipalities by the Government Accounting Standards Board is to create what's known as an internal service fund for your pending legal claims and suits. And so at the end of every fiscal year, the finance office reaches out to the city solicitor's office, and they prepare a schedule for us of large cases that may settle in the next 12 months. And they estimate at that point in time what they think those cases will settle for. I think it's safe to say that that is a very confidential document that goes nowhere besides the solicitor's office, finance, and our external audit partner, who keep that private for a lot of very important legal reasons. What we are required to do is prove in our financial statements that we have an amount of money equal to the total on that sheet in our internal service fund. So if you see on page 102 of our audit in exhibit B1, you can see a listing of all of the city's internal service funds, one of which is the legal accrual. These numbers are in thousands. So this right here is demonstrating that the city of Providence does have $12,700,000 as of June 30th, 2024, approved for pending suits and actions that may settle within the next 12 months.
Okay, and then I appreciate that explanation. I'm sorry, did you say there's an outside consultant that helps you figure that out, or?
No. The number itself is really determined by the law department. They give
Okay.
us the number, and then we are required to provide it to our auditors so that they can ensure that we're following the GASB.
I understand now, and then, I'm sorry, then back to our 800,400. So does that, if we don't use that, for, 2026, then does that go into the approval?
No, so if we, for example, if for some reason in 2026, we spend 500,000 in this line item, and that is all that's required for us to spend to meet our obligations as of June 30th, 2026.
Yeah.
That would mean that our operating budget would have $300,000 that it would take into retained earnings. We wouldn't need to transfer that to the legal accrual.
Okay, and then once it's transferred back into the general fund, if you use it for.
It ends up being transferred into the general fund when the payments are made. So, for example, the $5.5 million that we had approved for PPSD settlement will come out of the $12 million that's in the legal accrual. It will transfer back into the general fund where it's reported against this pay of claims and damages, and then we will process the payment to the Providence Public School District.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of questions on this, Councilor Sanchez.
No, thank you. So is this the page you're referring to, the second one?
Yes, it's the second page in the document. Mhm.
Thank you. It's just notated here in the thousands. So I think that needs to be,
Yep, so that, yeah, so that's 12,700,000.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, I appreciate this coming up because there were a lot of counselors that were interested in where the money came from. When we settled, with our lawsuit with the schools. So I'm sorry, again, remind me, my mind is not keeping track of. How much did we have to, pay 15?
There was $5.5 million of the settlement amount in this accrual fund.
Okay,
The total amount for fiscal year 24 and 25 was 15 million. $4 million of that was for fiscal year 25, or sorry, 24.
okay,
And then the 11 is in fiscal year 2025.
okay. You want this
Just to follow up on that, so that 11 million isn't coming from this pot, it's coming from general.
$5.5 million of that 11 million is coming from this pot.
But that happened in 2024, right?
Well, we put it in the accrual as of June 30th, 2024, so that it's available for the general fund in 2025.
It was a settlement before the year end, before we issued our financial statements, so we had to recognize it.
Oh, okay.
Because it was settled, yeah.
So I guess where was it before? You're saying it got put into this account?
Yes, at the end of fiscal year 2024, we expensed 5.5 million in that claims and damages account.
Oh,
And
which is different.
which is in, yeah, which is in, yes.
Just in, yeah, and all set. Yes, Counselor. No, I mean, this
No,
is, the reason we're doing this is because.
Got it. Sleep on it, maybe then I'll wake up tomorrow and be fully locked in.
Okay, Counselor Stevenson.
Thank you. I'll just experience this a little bit just because, well, all of this is extremely important, but one of the things that I think we need to do is give you feedback in certain things that we end up hearing, not only from our constituents, but as well as our team that works for us when they're doing work, to help facilitate some of our, things that we have to do. I want to talk a little bit about nuisance task force. We are advised to utilize nuisance task force for situations that require just that nuisance, that are nuisance. And we had, at least in my neighborhood, with everything that goes on, my neighbors see that as a tool, as an asset to be able to maintain certain standards for their quality of life. And we had consistently, because I check in weekly with our city maintenance team. And one of the things that was mentioned, pretty often is that, nuisance task force has been canceled. And when I asked for a full kind of audit of how many times in the year it had been done, it was 14 times. If we're being asked by public safety and the administration and the city to utilize this as a tool to support us and to help us, it doesn't help when we have this continued delay in being able to handle situations that come up front, that present themselves. So I wanted to understand a little bit more about perhaps how the organization of the law department can maybe not necessarily change, but perhaps there is a different way that we can organize to make sure that this is actually a fully functioning thing as intended, because when it's very difficult as a counselor to tell your constituent, hey, I understand that you're waiting on some sort of resolution or some answer from this, but they didn't meet this month. And when things get kind of dragged out, it makes it very difficult to sustain the support not only from your counselors, but also the support to the city. Like, we do very much try hard to maintain a lot of things and being able to support and utilize these different opportunities to convey either a message or sustain some sort of relief or just find an issue, solve an issue for them. And we don't have that. It makes it really tough. So that's the long and the short of it, but I just wanted to kind of put it out there because it is a problem, especially in my particular neighborhood, where they utilize this very much, like I said, as an asset and a tool, and I just want to put it, make it available so that we're on record trying to figure out how we can make it a little bit easier to work with.
So what I'll say is the meetings themselves are a very small aspect of what the nuisance task force is not some formal entity. It's sort of effort to collaborate with various factors that can be helpful with addressing nuisances in the city. And the idea of having meetings is to try to, there are circumstances where you can get all of the appropriate actors to address a particular nuisance in the same place at one time. It can be helpful, but it's far from the only or the primary way in which the city addresses nuisances. The typical relevant actors are the state attorney general's office and the city's law departments, public safety, whether it be pollution, fire, Department of Inspection Standards, sometimes DPW, whatever the relevant department may be. And communication amongst those various actors happens constantly to try to address whatever nuisances are trying to address. As far as the cancellation of meetings, my understanding is that when meetings are canceled, it's because they're not going to be able to have all of the right people in the room at the time. And then it's hard enough to get buy-in sometimes from all of the people you need to make the effort you need to address nuisances. And you don't want to just have a meeting that isn't going to be effective, just to have a meeting. So meetings are held when we get all the right people in the room at the same time and try to actually achieve something. If the meeting's not held, it doesn't mean that nothing's happening. There's still a lot of effort being put into addressing nuisances, just not with the existence of a nuisance task force meeting.
Can I just follow on that? Understood. However, I don't necessarily believe that all the other entities that work in nuisance task force see it as that. And when we're asking for solutions as counselors to mitigate issues, whether they be quality of life or ongoing issues for any other given reason, and we're told it has to go in front of nuisance task force, and they're not meeting for 2 consecutive months, it becomes it's a point of contention for neighbors, it's a point of contention for us as counselors. So I guess my follow-up question would be, is it something where we should be regulating it as a consistent month to month going forward?
I think maybe we can have some more follow-up outside of this meeting, because to me, that sounds like a real miscommunication that nothing can happen to address a nuisance outside of a nuisance task force meeting, because that's just not accurate. And waiting to address a nuisance is not something that happens. Certainly the law department, the police department, I'm not aware of departments that like hold off on taking action to try to address nuisances for a meeting. So that perhaps there's some improvement in communication of that particular topic that needs to happen, because as far as I'm aware, nobody waits to fulfill their responsibilities for a meeting to happen.
I'll make sure to send you a string of information just so that you can follow up on your own.
That would be helpful.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I think we're still in the middle of our, I think we stopped at fixed costs.
Yes.
Is that it? So that's it. Okay. So, anyone have any questions on, I think we went over. You have the revenue expenditure detail. I'm just wondering why it is, 48,001 miscellaneous revenue. Did we discuss this why going from 25,000 to 100,000?
Yeah, so that increase is based on historical actuals. As you can see in fiscal year 23-24, there was approximately $100,000 in revenue that's brought in. Year-to-date revenue in fiscal year 2025 is posted here at $262,000. However, $200,000 of this was booked incorrectly by our controller's office and would have been a reduction to a line item in another department's budget. So the actual expenditures year-to-date for fiscal 25 are $62,441. Which is supportive of $100,000 budget.
Okay, any other, yes, Councilor Graves and then Councilor Randall.
Oh, no,
Yeah, this is my.
51573, what is the employee assistance program? And,
Oh.
and it jumped a lot from, even though it was only about the 20 days. I just wanted to
Oh,
know.
the EAP, yeah, so that's an employee benefit that's offered to all city employees. I believe city council is also eligible for that.
Okay.
It's a per employee amount per month, and it was a new program, so that's why you're not seeing the actual history there. It started in about 2024.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Well, we have to thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you, everyone.
We really appreciate all you do.
I'm not going anywhere. We gotta finish our meeting.
Now we're on to, what are we on?
Oh, let's try to the back.
Probably.
Or maybe, oh, about it.
But you go out.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna take a break just for a minute.
Yeah. Okay, we'll stop out. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you.
So far. Well.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody went.
This is the green key. Green key. No, red.
Make sure she wasn't stealing from me. Then she had to go to the lady.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm on 2 hours too, man.
I can say 2 hours. We should go.
It is, it's just people.
That was your job, yes.
Because this thing, who does this?
Chicago, Beyonce.
I'm gonna be asking that department to do it.
This one.
No kids, no responsibility. Carefree, just get up and go.
No, I think I did the other end. No kids, no. And I really have to work, I really have to do it. It's better on this end, it may not look like it, but it is.
We almost continued you because you were in the bathroom. You really turned very.
I was against it.
I thought.
Anyway, we are going to go back. We are going to go back on record. Or we stop being on the record? All right, and whatever. All right, on we go. Thank you, Director. Oh, thank you, Deputy Director. I am going to ask that we mark this exhibit number 17. Motion made by Counselor Gray, seconded by Counselor Sanchez, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Okay. Please take it away.
Excellent. Okay, I'm joined today by Mr. John Main and Deputy Director Anthony House from the Public Property Department. The expenditure, revenue and expenditure details on their budget begin on page 203 and continue on to page 204. We'll first be reviewing the public property portion of their budget. This is a revenue generating department. This revenue is derived from City Hall building rental fees. I'm not sure if you see the weddings that are often happening in City Hall, but there's a fee associated with that, which is reported in this department. Additionally, they recoup insurance proceeds for claims on damaged city property. Total proposed expenditures in this department are $8,686,888. This represents a $2,914,532 decrease from the fiscal year 2025 budget, or approximately 25%. When we look at salaries in this department in fiscal 2025, their budget at $1,821,519. We are making adjustments for cost of living increases at $41,000. Step increases at $21,777. There was a memorandum of understanding executed in fiscal year 2025 that we had discussed previously in the communications department. That has also impacted the salary line item for this department. So we need to add $18,533 for that position. To help balance the budget in fiscal year 2026, we have defunded the vacant manager facilities position at $112,321. We've also defunded the maintenance person 3 pools and recreation position at $66,238, which has been replaced with a maintenance foreman at $70,528. That's an effect that is in effect currently and was required for the union because of the role that employee was filling. So the former pools and recreation maintenance person is now the maintenance foreman. Okay. Would you like me to stop here for questions on salaries or continue?
Can we continue?
Yeah. For me, yeah. Excellent. On to slide 6. Their operating budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. We'll first go through services because there are quite a few line items in this department. The first fixed cost is liability insurance at $248,667. This is for property insurance for all of the city-owned buildings that are used as collateral for our bonds issued to Providence Public Building Authority. So the city is self-insured for almost all of our risks out there, but if we do have bonded debt against a building, we are required to have insurance for it, and this is the city's fair share of that. PPBA does go out to bid for that annually. When they receive those bids back, my office works with the Public Property Office to allocate those total bills between Providence Public Building Authority, the city, and Providence Public School Department based on the building values prorated out.
And is that through board contract and supply?
It does get awarded to the Board of Contract and Supply, so PPPA does do the solicitation and ultimately does decide what vendor they're going to go with. At that point in time, the Department of Public Property will prepare a communication letter to the Board of Contract and Supply requesting that the award go to the vendors that we will be paying.
Okay, Council Graves.
What other buildings, fall under this? You said school, I think you said schools. Are there any other buildings that fall under this?
So I don't have the complete list. Chief Mancini, I think, would probably be in the most recent version of that list, but I think it's a lot of our. I couldn't even, a lot of.
There's
schools,
a,
but-
there is a required by law, there is any district that receives reimbursement from the state, they must have officials that staff a public school building committee. I am the city's representative to that committee, along with a member from the council, I believe, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's, Kyle.
Superstar Kyle Delgado.
Is the council's representative,
Jen.
and Mr. Azarian is also a representative of that committee. It meets monthly. Also has opportunity to review building specifications that are being planned or in progress. And there are regular reports shared by that committee. So if there's a need for them, we can certainly get them to turn it on. Well, Gina.
Oh, Gina, okay, I thought you were talking about my
He looked at me.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you. A large discretionary in this budget, line item in this budget, which is not necessarily discretionary, is the streetlight fees for Prism. These are streetlight maintenance and repairs, which are critical services in the city. This line item is where the water and sewer fees were previously budgeted, which is why the decrease is so significant. Postage is another discretionary line item and budgeted at a modest $200. Dues and subscriptions at $9,700 represent the annual music licenses and professional memberships. Pest control is budgeted at $55,000, which is $15,000 increase. This increase has been offset by reductions in both the police and fire budgets. They had previously been paying for their own pest control and now will be centrally managed by the Department of Public Property. Taxes, real estate are the property taxes that the city is required to pay for Camp Cronin. Private contractors at $228,500 represent decorative lighting related costs, security alarm inspections, and 444 Westminster management fees. Refuse processing is budgeted at $21,000, and this represents City Hall waste processing as well as the public safety complex and many of our recreation centers. Professional development is budgeted at $2,000 in fiscal year 2026 and is considered discretionary expense. And miscellaneous professional services have been budgeted at $10,000, and this is funding for any sort of architect and engineering services that may be required for non-capital improvement projects.
Okay, yes, please, Councilor Randall.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Rose, and Director. I have two quick questions, well, one quick question, actually, two quick questions and maybe longer questions, sorry. One is, what are the annual music licenses?
Oh, those are, so because we are not a private entity, if we would like to play music at any of our events or in City Hall or Rec Center, we have to license that as a corporation. So this is the fees for us.
Holiday celebration.
Exactly,
Oh, okay.
exactly. So
Okay. And then, for pest control, what are we paying for pest control? Like when we met with DPW earlier this week, was that yesterday? Oh my gosh. Like 24 hours ago, we talked a bit about rat control and stuff like that, and anyway, the potential move away from some of the SCARs and the rat abatement things we've been using that are harmful to wildlife. Anyway, long intro to say, what's the $55,000 being spent on for pest control?
It's for the public buildings.
Yeah, but like for what? Like, is it what pest? Is it
Interior and
rats? Is
exterior.
it?
Mice, rats, but it's.
Okay, and are we just putting down like poison, and are we doing anything else? I know DPW has been experimenting with things that aren't just poison.
These are bait boxes.
Bait boxes.
Right.
It's been $55,000. Is it working?
Yes, yeah. We didn't have it, I think we'd be
Yeah,
a lot bigger problem.
but do we still have a problem? Like it's still,
Well, it'll always be an ongoing problem.
Yeah.
I mean, so by having the pest control service, we're cutting down on that. I believe it was a year and a half ago, City Hall itself had a pretty good mouse problem that we took care of. But along with this, I mean, it's not just mice and rats. I mean, if we get bombarded with, I think City Hall got bombarded with a fruit fly problem.
Okay, yeah,
Not
that's
too
what I was
long.
asking, like, what pets are we talking about? Is it just rats and rat boxes, or is it like? Okay, and, yeah. And is it a service that we pay for, or are you guys doing it yourselves?
Yes.
Who do we work with?
Right now it's Prestige, which I
Um,
believe we're going back up to.
okay, and then I guess like a. Yes. One thing that I had asked fire, and they said to ask you guys, that I just remembered is, for some of the vacant buildings that we have around, the city, including some of the vacant fire buildings, like there's one on, Rochambeau and, it's like right off of Polk Street on Rochambeau, and there's one in Ward 2, I believe, on Humboldt, maybe, like, there's
Fire station.
empty fire stations. What's the plan for some of these vacant buildings?
So, Rochambeau is not actually empty.
Oh, yeah, they're like storing
It's been
stuff.
occupied by communications. Humboldt is currently occupied by Air Supply, which we're getting ready to move them. Then we're going to pretty much shut down the building, and we're actively gonna work on selling it.
Oh, you're gonna sell it, okay.
Oh, that's exciting. People are gonna love that.
That's
We've got a lot of people interested in that, I'll tell you.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other buildings that we're looking to sell if we've got in our portfolio, if we're not actively using them?
There, I mean, there is.
Yeah, real estate right now is doing evaluations on all the buildings.
Yeah, okay. This is a dumb question. Is real estate under you guys? They're
No,
here?
it's not. Nicholas was actually here, but he had to leave.
Oh, yeah.
He was in a-
You didn't want to just like hang out till 9?
Yes.
I think he did have a commitment.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just totally kidding. That's
Yeah.
totally fair.
But I do know that is something that, he technically reports to the Department of Planning, so that is, that is where he rolls up, but he does work very closely with the Department of Planning.
Could you guys keep us like informed as those types of things move forward? I think there's just like a lot of interest both on council, but also our constituents. Ask it.
And say we have to go to. Possibly.
Great. Okay, is that all your questions?
For right now, yeah.
Okay. Everybody's complete.
Excellent. I'm gonna move on to slide 7, which is the supply items, and there's quite a few of them. First in the discretionary category, we have office supplies at $4,000, stationery at $500, and miscellaneous expenses are budgeted at $10,000. Small tools and shop supplies are budgeted at $20,000. This is a $32,000 decrease, and it's for tools to, repair various things throughout the city. Construction and maintenance supplies have been budgeted at $35,000, and this is a $40,000 reduction from the fiscal year 2025, and it is for funding for materials and construction related supplies. Auto parts have been budgeted at $15,000. It's a $22,000 decrease from fiscal year 2024. Fuels have been budgeted at $100,000, and it is a $100,000 decrease from fiscal year 2025, and has been supported by the historical spending we have here. Housekeeping supplies have been budgeted at $75,000, and these are cleaning materials for all city buildings, mostly City Hall. Miscellaneous paint supplies are budgeted at $15,000. Motor fuel is motor fuel for all of the city's fleet, including public safety, and that's budgeted at $1.5 million. Electrical supplies are budgeted at $20,000. Tires are, again, self-explanatory, budgeted at $4,000. Uniforms and wearing apparel have been budgeted at $15,000. This is a $15,000 reduction from fiscal year 2025. Rental of equipment is budgeted at $2,500, and this is any sort of hardware tools. Miscellaneous materials and supplies are budgeted at $25,000, and this is for any sort of hardware tools or supplies the department needs to complete their work. Rental of equipment is budgeted at $20,000, and this is the rental of the mailroom equipment that they use downstairs, as well as any sort of necessary portable restrooms or miscellaneous equipment they need to do repairs throughout city buildings. Maintenance and service is a large fixed cost at $310,600. This is the annual pool maintenance for our rec centers and all of our public pools, wastewater testing, as well as recreation deep cleaning as necessary. Repairs to autos and trucks has been budgeted at $18,000 and is a $9,000 reduction from fiscal year 2025. Copier and lease maintenance is budgeted at $7,000, and repairs to buildings have been budgeted at $1,260,000 for fiscal year 2026.
Repair to buildings, I'm sorry, that's fixed cost.
It is.
Okay. And I didn't look there. So what kind of repairs, and do we hire contractors to do that, or what's going on with that, repairs to buildings?
So that would be, like Encore, our, fire safety, fire alarms, fire extinguishers, things of that nature. We have, companies like Industrial Burner, who maintains all the boilers throughout the city. We have electrical contractors, just, so pretty much every aspect of the building repair, we have money aside for each of those.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anybody questions on this? And I'm sorry, to interrupt you before we go on to the next page.
Not a problem at all. This is the department that has capital expenditures. The first capital line item is the urgent capital expenditure line item. This was ARPA funding that had been allocated, I want to say maybe fiscal year 2022. Every year we estimate the balance that had, like, we take the total that was allocated, we back out what has been spent to date, we estimate what will be spent for the rest of the year, and then we budget the remainder in the upcoming fiscal year. At this point in time, we estimate that there will be about $500,000 worth of projects that haven't completed as of June 30th, and we will be finishing those before June 30th of 2026. So that's why that number is going down. In the non-departmental revenue, you will see a $500,000 revenue that is offsetting that expenditure. So it is a budget neutral line item. There is also a $5,000 allocation for miscellaneous and project expenses, which is kind of again, a placeholder similar to what we saw in DPW last night, so that we do have some sort of capital funding available. But again, $5,000 is not going to go a tremendous amount of way on capital improvement. We do have quite a few capital improvement dollars that have allocations specifically for general repairs. And so it's in the best interest of the city at that time to focus on utilizing that funding and maintaining our general allocation. And that wraps up the financial portion. I'm sorry, for public property. Is that going to continue the purchasing now, or?
No, just a second, we just wanted to look at the, do we have any vacant positions? Any vacant funded positions in the public property department? This might be over.
Positions.
Uh,
Vacant, Madam Chair, are you looking for the vacant unfunded or vacant funded?
Vacant funded, yeah, vacant funded.
Vacant and funded, I don't believe you have any vacant and funded positions.
Really? Yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you. In terms of the salaries for laborers / custodians, is that pretty, if you guys are aware, is that pretty on par with surrounding cities or towns?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know that, the union working with the city has provided a substantial, bump in pay for everybody, which I believe is coming up.
I would think so, because they are in positions.
I do know that, as we talked about this night, one of the items in that agreement is that a full wage analysis will be done, and so I anticipate that that is one of the positions they will be looking at very closely when they do that wage analysis.
Very good. My opinion on it is that it appears to be a little low.
Where are those? Sorry. Okay, yes, Councilor Randall.
Thank you. Just a quick question. So I know that we transferred the, payment of utilities, the water and sewer to sustainability this year. Who was doing that? Like, where did that fall on public property before?
That was,
Like, what are they able to do now that they don't have to do that?
So that, our fiscal analyst was taking care of that. She is also taking care of our operational budget and is taking on our CIP budget. So she's multitasking a lot. So when this change happened, we were actually happy about it because we're taking some off of her plate, but we're actually putting that kind of work where it belongs.
Yeah,
with
no,
everything
totally.
else,
I was just
because
wondering where it was, yeah.
They're more capable of managing with the tools and stuff they have.
Like it was stated before, she felt uncomfortable paying a bill that she had no idea.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fair, yeah.
I'll also add that, while the dollar amount is very high, they are monthly bills, so we're talking about 24 invoices per year. So on a time basis, the physical processing of the payment is not what takes time. It is the analysis of the bill itself
yeah,
and
yeah.
ensuring that it's accurate. So, you know, while it may appear that there's $1 million worth of things that this individual is no longer managing, that may seem like a major workload. There are considerable amount of line items. that she's
Yeah, it sounds like there's a
tracking
ton of
that-
other things. So I
Yes,
didn't know who
exactly.
had been doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
Question, did you have a, inspector of public property position that used to be and is no longer? Inspector? Oh. I don't show about this.
Let me see what-
Yeah, so in fiscal year 2025, the inspector of public property position was not funded. And it is not funded again in fiscal year 2026.
Okay, and is someone else doing that in their duties? I mean, I don't know what the duties were of the inspector of public property, but I'm just wondering if someone inspecting. The current work or.
Well, the mailroom clerk is also the inspector of public property, so I think that is the also.
Snow inspector, snow inspector.
Oh,
What we did.
The title is mailroom clerk / inspector of public property is the title of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Is that not accurate? though?
is that accurate? Where is that? Yeah, I only see now, I was gonna say.
Yes.
It might be in the. Yeah, well, if you can get back to us, that would be great. I'll hold everything up and looking further. That would be good. All right, any other questions? Yes. Councilor Peterson.
Thank you. Are there any foreseeable, things that should be present in this budget with regards to the new build on the new DPW building? Or is that kind of a role for that? Okay. I would love to, I know that you guys are handling a lot of this. I would like to know a little bit more about what that's bringing. Yesterday, they were in a conversation where, they actually had said that there was not enough room for all of the things that they were needing. And so I wanted to just understand what it was. Yeah. No, I thought she said that there was.
We said there wasn't enough space for what Oscar wanted, but she wasn't asking for what.
I believe you wanted to move it in.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wants to have it in, and she was like, we don't want the bin, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of the DPW building though, is there anything in particular that, you know, is the? Like, I'm not sure how that, what the status is.
Right now, hopefully groundbreaking July.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to see plans of what that looks like at some point, if you guys could provide something. It's
We did
just-
have Kyle, try to set up something for the council.
Okay.
We did have a couple of councils show up, we can do that again.
Please, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is that Kyle? Sorry, did you say Kyle said that?
You're fine, yeah.
Oh, our Kyle. I'm like, oh, my Kyle.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I missed it, but is there, what's the reasoning behind, revenue going down in, DPW, I guess, over just the past few years? I mean, yeah. Hungry, tired, angry, happy, blessed.
Councilman, there was are you talking about the?
I'm saying compared to like 23, 24, we were a lot more. in
Yeah, so
revenue.
a portion of that, if you see, account code 48376, Airmark additional capital projects improvement. That was an agreement that the city reached with Airmark back when it executed its agreement pre-state takeover, where there was funding that the city would be able to retain in order to do some school investments. That grant has expired, so that funding has gone away. Additionally, the payroll reimbursements that you see here are budgeted as a reduction in salary because that is how they are not general funded employees, they're funded by capital improvement bonds. So I need to work with our controller's office because they have a tendency to report them as a revenue instead of a reduction in the salary expense, and it creates a budgetary problem.
Okay.
So that $505,000 will actually be reclassified to a reduction in salary expense in accordance with how those positions are budgeted.
Thank you. Makes sense.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I think we're under, I'm so sorry. really sorry, Chanel, very sorry. But I think we're on to you.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you so much, Director.
Thank you.
Deputy Director, we appreciate what you're doing. Okay.
Thank you for sticking it out.
Yes, thank you for taking it out. We appreciate it.
We should have.
Luckily, we all work very closely together pretty regularly, so we're used to sticking through these sorts of things.
Oh, so okay, we're gonna transfer this and then make this. Oh, interesting. All right, so thank you so much for bringing with you tonight our report. Purchasing with key highlights and accomplishments and updates on initiatives. And charts. Where they appreciate it. So, I don't know if we all have a copy of this.
We don't.
Bring any?
That's it. That's what.
Can you please forward copies so that we can all receive them?
Yes.
But I will mark this as our next exhibit.
Exhibit 18.
So moved.
Second, motion made by Councilor Sanchez, seconded by Councilor Ingersoll, all in favor? All opposed. Okay, thank you very much. All right, we're on.
Excellent, okay. I'm on slide 10 in your PowerPoint presentation. The line item details for this budget are on page 207 of the budget. Total proposed expenditures in fiscal year 2026 are $749,135. This represents a $20,813 decrease from fiscal year 2025, or 2.7% reduction. Total salaries in the purchasing department are budgeted at $438,641. This budget has been adjusted for the following line items: cost of living increases of $12,063, step increases of $8,412. The department has defunded a vacant purchasing help strategy manager position at $60,117, for a total proposed fiscal 2026 salary of $398,999. This department's budget has been broken into 15 discretionary costs. The first discretionary cost in their budget is $34,900. This is parking for eligible staff, as well as translation for any sort of RFPs or purchasing materials, which is an initiative that the department has begun working on in fiscal year 2025. Dues and subscriptions are budgeted at $1,100. This is NIGP memberships for the staff, as well as an RIMPAA membership, which are procurement agencies and organizations. Professional development has been budgeted at $1,500 and is not an increase over fiscal year 2025. And their supply line items, so we have a modest office supply budget of $1,500. It's been reduced by $1,000 based on historical spending trends. And their copy or lease maintenance is the cost of their copy machine. It's budgeted at $2,600, and that is level funded from fiscal year 2025.
Thank you. And the parking, what is the parking? Or who is the parking for?
Parking is for the non-union staff members, so the two director and deputy director, most non-union staff are eligible for parking paid for at the Civic Center garage.
Yes, you can ask questions.
Thank you. For the parking fee, I noticed that it's like way more than, what we pay in the Rifta passes. Do we like actively encourage people to take advantage of the Rifta passes when possible, or is that just kind of like when we were talking with Director, Winspear, Chief Winspear, sorry. It looks like that was a much smaller line item for across the whole city. Are we in general paying a lot for parking at the Civic Center across departments?
So this is both parking and translation, so.
It's both.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes,
Okay, I was
yes.
like, that's so much for parking.
No,
Okay.
I'm sure it's parking space, yeah.
People listen. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Sorry.
people, I believe the parking is $1,200 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
1,200?
For both parking passes, it's $100 for them. Okay.
Yes. May I just ask, miscellaneous revenue, why is there something in fiscal year 2025 and now?
You know, I will have to look into the genesis of that item. I'm not sure if the committees were, but while I love to modernize things, our every dollar that is earned by the city of Providence is hand entered into our ERP system by a human. And the human that does that task is a wonderful gentleman. He's been with the city for over 30 years. And he really does not like to let things sitting unbooked. So he will occasionally put things and book them into an account, and I will find them, and I will have to respectfully request that he move them or explain to me what those line items are. And I will be reaching out to him tomorrow morning to see what this $1,600 is. I anticipate it's probably some sort of refund, or I also believe that the department started a rebate program with Home Depot, so that is most likely what that is. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. And then I'd also like to know whether in your opinion, we are improving our procurement of WEEs and MBEs. I mean, I know that this is not it's economic development also, but you've been working on that and working with economic development.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, so one of the things that we have, which is actually part of the sample reports that I provided, we started tracking for our POs every month. We started tracking how much of those the POs actually go to any needs of the BD. So that is something that is highlighted in one of the key performance indicators. In addition to that, we are also tracking how much when it comes to the water contract supply. We are tracking how much of all those contracts that are going to MBs and MPEs. We are working together with economic development. There is a consultant that is actually helping us to do the reach out. Their name is Hopleaf. An interesting name, but they are actually helping us. What we do basically in purchasing, we identify an RFP that has the potential for MBEWB participation. We share the RFP with them in the portal, and then they do basically, they reach out, they have access to public list actually. They reach out to the subcontractors that are part of the lease with the state of Rhode Island. And they are just encouraging them to participate. They just, those are some of the things that we have been working.
I appreciate that. We do have, we haven't met yet with the economic development director, I don't think. So we will follow up, but I appreciate your efforts.
In addition to that, I would like to say that, and this is thanks to Deputy Chibel Bridges, she's been doing a great job when it comes to blanket contracts, which is basically some of the contracts that we in purchasing manage. So I can tell you, for example, and you're a better person to say, but when it comes to waste management services for the city of Providence, the vendor that is actually providing the service, she's a WB, I think she's also an MBE person. And those are areas, the blanket contracts, those are areas that we have been trying to be more proactive, right, and take more like the initiative, like reaching out, but Shiva can speak more to that.
Thank you. To add to Director Torres' statement, we have been utilizing the state's contract, the state's MBEWB certified vendor list, very often with our solicitations. And so what we do is we actually reach out directly to these vendors and let them know that these are on the road. These are opportunities that we would like to fund. We want to get the funding back into the city. And so with that, we send out emails every week. We also offer trainings if they want information on how to fill out our bid forms. And to add to the waste management contract that we have for the city facilities. This was once with a different organization. We have then transferred over to Greenview Tree Services, which is Gloria Chohan. She is a MBEWBE certified vendor. She has started out as a tree service vendor and branched out into waste management and recycling, and she's been doing an amazing job so far. We've been making sure that we also reach out to these vendors to see if they have other contacts as well. How can we bridge or open up new opportunities for them? What new blankets that we have never done in the past, which were usually small purchases. How can we get the collaboration with other departments across the city to give us a larger opportunity for local vendors?
This is music to my ears. I mean, oh my gosh, we've been asking about this. And I just can't thank you enough for the proactive, reaching out to these entities. So you're using the state list.
Correct.
The list.
And one last thing, if I may, so we have also been working closely with some of the chambers and business associations to engage more vendors to do this outreach. This is also something that we've been working in collaboration with economic development, in particular, Grace Diaz. So we have been working, we have done events with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We have been at the RIVA, the Black Business Association, among other organizations. So those are, I mean, we know that this is an area, there's more to be done. And we're hoping to do more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys do such a great job and it's a busy job and I appreciate everything you do. This is just wonderful. So one more question on this. When you do find, when you are talking to these people and find a new business, do you add them to the state list or do we start having our own city list or, I mean, are you growing the list of MBWB organizations?
So, we basically take what the state has available. The state has a very comprehensive program and they are basically the ones with the certification. So we take what is available in the list. I know there is a difference between what the state has when it comes to MBWB. So we make sure that whoever is in the list is actually in compliance with our city ordinance. So that's basically what we do.
Great. Oh my gosh, what a little treasure at the end of the night. Yes, Councilor Graves.
Could you tell me what, fees not classified? How?
So it's really just a kind of account code description that was created probably in 2003 and has been carried years and years. It is where we consistently request that departments budget their staff parking so that I can get a kind of a consistent accounting for that across all departments. But different departments use it for different things. In this case, this department is using it to budget for translating of RFPs is the bulk of that line.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Peterson.
This is more of a finance, and I don't know if this is something that can be done across the board. I see that in different departments, we have line items for interpreter, translation services, and multiple things of that nature. I just wonder if we could utilize some of those fundings better by perhaps even hiring somebody that does some of the stuff available to in-house. And I was wondering if you'd be able to just see if there's if the amount of money that we're spending on these services could actually allow us to hire somebody in-house to be able to do some of this. I know that not all of it correlates into different things. I did interpreting for many years while I was putting myself through my master's program, but I do believe that there's an opportunity here that perhaps if we can see a relevant opportunity for savings, it might not, you know, we're trying to figure out all the different ways that we can do good things with this budget, so I'm just asking for that, if there's a way to see how much we're actually spending on interpreting and translation services throughout the different departments.
We certainly could. I off the top of my head, do think it might be cost prohibitive, as you had mentioned, like the actual function of what interpretation is being done is very different from one department to the next. For example, in housing court, needing a very different skill set to interpret in person for that sort of case than what this office may need to, you know, really just digest an RFP. What I can say is where possible, when we do have bilingual staff, we do try to, where they're comfortable and possible, utilize their expertise in that area. For example, my budget analyst is fluent in Spanish, she's Dominican. While we were preparing things, one of the things we talked with her about is like, can you help us read these materials, make sure that you feel like they are accurate and would be understandable, you know, in your community and that everyone would be comfortable with them. So, you know, again, that's not necessarily a direct, like, we're hiring this person specifically for translation, but we all kind of pitch in where we can to help with our individual skill sets and experiences. I will try to do my best to put together that report,
I appreciate
see what that looks like, so you can kind of just see, it may also just be helpful for us to know throughout the city how we are investing and being, more accessible to all languages.
And is it okay if I ask another question? One of the things that I wanted to understand more is in terms of our purchasing in general. Moving on to something else, I have all of these questions. Oftentimes, especially, I'm very heavily involved in my recreation center in my neighborhood. And one of the things that often gets told to us is that the process takes a long time. And what I'm trying to do in an effort to find efficiency and all the different things that we're looking at is see if there's a way that we could find some sort of way to consolidate for our external partners that are doing some of this work. I'm sure that our council staff would probably share and weigh in on some of this as well. But in general, one of the conversations that I've often heard is the process takes so long for us to get something that by the time we actually need it, and the time has passed for us to get it. So they need to kind of plan ahead, but sometimes we don't provide them with the tools to be able to plan ahead. So if I'm asking my rec director, hey, what are you anticipating for the fall in terms of programming and things like that? They're not necessarily equipped with the tools to be able to do some of that planning. So I want to be able to see if there's an efficient way of being able to provide some of those supportive technical assistance services to streamline some of this so that they're not lagging in terms of being able to get out there.
Right, that's a great question. One of the key performance indicators that is in the report has to do with the average time that it takes to process a requisition from the moment the requisition is entered in the system and approved by the department head. To the moment that it becomes an actual PO that we release, on average, you can see it's something that we've been tracking. It takes between 3 to 4 business days. Sometimes, obviously, this is an average, right? So sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes less than that. One of the things, I think I agree, there's a huge need to provide more training. Sometimes procurement is sort of like this black box in the planes, right? So we have open spaces. We created sort of like an office hour that we call it the power hour, which is in power hour. Every Tuesday, and this is a commercial, every Tuesday. 10 a.m. We do it over Zoom, over Teams, so to make it easier for people.
Wait, can we
to Absolutely, yeah, it's an open space, and basically it's first comes, first service. So, and sometimes we basically go over questions about, hey, where is my PO? Hey, so what happens, or I need to purchase these things and I need them by this time, right? So those are some of the
It's
things.
good to know, thank you.
Right,
I
right.
just pass a pile, now I know I don't have to just pass a pile, I can show the drawings.
Yes, thinking about case of work.
Yeah.
We actually open, outside of the purchasing power hour, we open a regular meeting with them. So whenever there is a need, we also open that opportunity for.
I appreciate that. I wanted to just say thank you because I don't think that information gets passed down oftentimes, and I think it would help to relay some of that. I'm happy to be one of those candidates to do that, so thank you.
I think, hold on, we have deputy director, did you want to say anything?
Oh, yes, I wanted to add on.
And then that deputy. First, deputy director.
Yes, I wanted to add on to the statement pertaining to recreation.
Yeah.
Particularly, so I came from recreation, for background, I came from Kennedy. Then I moved into the city. And I also had your daughter in her camp.
Yeah.
So I understand a lot of the needs of recreation, and I think room for improvement on behalf of purchasing and recreation is having that open collaboration space. I think a lot of the times the individual directors of each center are not aware of the process. And so what the gap we're trying to bridge is to make sure that we're easily accessible to those directors as well. And that's something that we've been working on improving that will then increase the service that is provided to each particular.
I appreciate that greatly. Thank you so much. I knew that you would be able to get into that.
And then we have our other deputy director who would like to speak.
I just wanted to make a comment. So me being here for coming up to 2 years now with the city, I have been learning a lot from purchasing, Chevelle and Alejandro. So there are so many different processes to get something done. And it depends on different funding sources, the type of project it is, and things of that nature. So I am one of those people that keep asking questions like, you know, about appeals or about the process and stuff like that. And they are great at explaining everything on my level.
That's an executive endorsement. Madam Auditor.
I was gonna echo the same thing, but I also wanna say that sometimes departments, generally not subject to recreation, they're not planned, they're always in a hurry, they don't. They're not on that.
I
So
completely
they-
agree.
But it is turnover.
Yeah.
So the more turnover you have, it's less training, because if the person above isn't training them, it lands on them, and when they're doing their daily things that they have to do, they have to train them. So it does become difficult, but there are the 3 to 4 days for purchase order now is not a problem. I don't see a problem with purchasing going on at all.
I think that that's wonderful, and I, like I said, I commend you,
So I would like to say that there's more training coming.
Yeah.
We partner with this government agency, Sourcewell. And they are coming actually to the city this coming August. And one of the things that they like to work with us is like developing procurement one-on-one sort of training, particularly for new staff. So that is something that I think will open, provide more opportunities for people to learn more about this.
Okay.
One more. I apologize. It's just that I wasn't sure that I heard the answer, and I wanted to make sure that I asked it, and it happens to be with the previous, and I'm so sorry. But I didn't hear if there was, I just didn't understand why there was a defunding of the manager of facilities position. I don't know if anybody can answer that for me. I must have missed it, so I apologize.
Yeah, so there has been some staff turnover in the department this fiscal year. There's been a restructuring of how the reporting will work. One of the key components of that was taking the, what was formerly the fiscal, what was that title? Fiscal manager of capital bond, capital bond analyst and fiscal agent, and shifting that role and responsibility out of public property and into finance. So when we talk about the capital improvement plan, it would be, again, me here presenting that very, very large spending plan for the next 5 years. With the incumbent who was in public property and now is a member of the finance team, and she's done incredible work, and I can't wait to talk with you all about that. But what we have found is that the former director of public property was doing a considerable amount of that kind of capital finance bond work. And while Mr. Alves is a wonderful individual, it didn't make a ton of sense to continue to have that deputy director position in such a financially heavy role, particularly with the shifting of that function away from the public property department and into the finance department. And so while we are still kind of figuring out that organization and how those things will work, that manager of facilities position had been vacant because Anthony had moved up into that role. And so we are continuing to keep that vacant in fiscal 2026. And allow should funding become available. We, would perhaps look at filling that in 2027 once we have a better idea of what the needs are. But because the departure was, mid-year, and the structure is still a little bit uncertain of where all of the individual pieces will land, we felt it would be, best in fiscal 2026 to keep that vacant for the upcoming fiscal year.
So just to clarify, it would be vacant under public property?
Correct.
Oh, okay, because there's no vacant positions.
So typically, the positions that are presented on the chart are only the funded positions. And that manager of facilities position is not.
And this is not, this is defunded now.
It was defunded, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, well, this was a lovely way to end the evening. Thank you so much.
Was.
We and we really appreciate everyone's.
Okay.
Made by council, you're gonna say it by-
Great job, both of
Motion to adjourn by Councilor Gray, second by Councilor Ingersoll, in favor.
I really appreciate you coming. I'm gonna run out of battery.